opinions expressed by callers, guests, and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of the Black Talk Radio Network and Black Talk Media Project. Black Talk Radio is new black media for the new millennium.
Lift your eyes up, let your wise rise up. See the signs of the times. If it's time, rise up, rise up. When death and hell dwell among all God's people, when those we chose and trusted have become completely corrupted and inherently evil, when the feast that feeds you starves our father's children, when snuff, porn, and pedo forms begin to get top billing, rise up. When famine claims millions, when justice gives blind eyes to billions, when the Lord's anger is no longer feared, if his protection is gone and your enemies are near, if you've seen the seas spill over and the mountains shake, break, and fall, if the moon ever turns blood red and you can't see the sun at all, rise up. No matter if the prize is high in the sky.
Welcome to New Abolitionist Radio on the Black Talk Radio Network, a program that seeks to educate, inform, and agitate on the issue of 21st century legalized slavery. Currently hosted by social activist and spoken word poet Max Parthas with Black Talk Media Project founder Scotty Reid. On this program, we discuss recent news on legalized 21st century slavery and human trafficking, along with projects and people who help combat it. Today is the August 23rd, 2017 broadcast of New Abolitionist Radio. The Millions for Prisoners March on Washington, August 19th, is done. The largest national gathering of slavery abolitionists in U.S. history happened. The witnesses have spoken, and America is broken. On this day, in 1861, James Stone was the first black man signed on to fight in the Civil War. James Stone, a light-skinned fugitive slave passing for white, enlisted in the 1st Fight Artillery of Ohio. His racial identity would not be known until his death nearly a year later. As we did right before the march and rally, we're opening the lines for the whole show and inviting organizers and supporters nationwide to join the conversation. Call in and share your experiences. Today we begin a new segment hosted by Yusuf Hassan, where we will read, examine, and discuss the U.S. constitutional rights of all citizens and how they tie into slavery, both past and present. Our Abolitionists in Profile and the segment For Freedom's Sake, A History of Rebellion will be combined into one segment. We will be remembering Nat Turner's Rebellion, which was divinely inspired by the solar eclipse occurring on August 21st, 1831. Our rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad is 61-year-old Ladora Watkins. Watkins was released on June 15, 2017 after serving 42 years for a robbery and murder he did not commit, and is the longest serving inmate to be exonerated in Michigan. Have a question or a comment? Were you at the rally or one of the marches? You can call us toll-free USA at 1-866-510-9025. If you're already on the line after we finish our introductions and such, just press ** to unmute yourself. You can chat with us and others by logging in at uberconference.com/Black Talk Radio Network. Once again, I'm Max Parthas. What's happening, Brother Scotty?
I'm always late, ain't I, Max? Hopefully,
Scotty Reid?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes, sir. We can hear you now.
Yeah, I was just posting the show to some of my social media networks that I'm involved in. But yes, as you stated at the beginning of the program, August the 19th has come and gone, and what was said was going to be done did happen. All right, it was one of those cases of we need to do this, as opposed to we can now say we did do this. And like you mentioned, it is historic in the amount of people, I mean, nationwide. Now, Max, help me if I'm wrong, and any historians out there that have studied the abolitionist movement pre-1865, did they ever have like a gathering of abolitionists? And then we know they had gatherings of abolitionists. They had conferences and everything that went down in Washington, D.C., but did they do it all over the country on the same day, all in solidarity with one another? I think that might have been a first, Max, as well as just the number of participants. But to be honest, I don't know how many abolitionists existed during any year in pre-1865. I just know the ones that's been written about. But I guess every victim of slavery would be an abolitionist, so I guess it's a moot point.
Well, Scotty, we have been reporting here on abolitionists of the past now for 5 full years, and I've never read anything about anything like this happening in history. So, yeah, I think that we did cover the bases. It was a unique, incredible event. I would call it epic, monumental, historic. All of those things applied. You had to have been there to witness it. I know we were in Washington, so we saw Washington there. We did everything from the march at Freedom Plaza. I participated in. Travel Rain participated in. Other comrades who came out from across the country with us participated in. And then we also participated in the presentation overall. It was amazing. And some of the people that came out there really needed to have their testimonies told. All the people needed their testimonies told, but there were just some amazing voices. Like the last surviving member of the Move 9, Ramona Africa, was there and spoke. And also the 2 remaining survivors of the Angola 3 were there. And Brother Robert King spoke. He inspired the hell out of me. He was the final keynote speaker, just right behind myself. And he inspired me by his own statements about changing his language and the importance of changing our language. So, yeah, it was epic. And I'm hoping some of the people across the country who have participated in sister marches will be calling in today. We know that in Alabama there was one, in San Jose there was another one, in Asheville there was another one, there was, I believe, in Long Island, and also Washington State.
16 different cities. I don't know if someone has put out a complete list. If someone has access to a list and would like to give us a call at 866-510-9025, hit star at any moment. It's open lines, as Max stated. Hit star to share the information. But I read from some of the alternative, I'm not going to call it alternative, from the real news, let's call it the real news, as opposed to the fake news and the corporate controlled news. But I've read in several reports from news outlets that were 16 cities in total that had an abolitionist event, whether it included a march or if it was just a rally itself. Looks like we have Sister Tribal Rain calling in. Yeah, sis, if you have some information, definitely we would want to hear from you. You was part of the Carolina contingent that the Black Talk Media Project and listeners of New Abolitionist Radio helped fund our contingent, and did so quite quickly. Within 2 to 3 days, we were fully funded, and I just can't tell y'all just how smooth everything went. There were small glitches, but that was mostly with the technology. Some funny things that happened, like almost not waking up in time to go to the rally, because, I'll speak for myself, because I was up till like 5 o'clock that morning. That's when you could see I posted the page where we were going to be broadcasting off of Black Talk Radio. And I had been enjoying some libations, and I crashed hard. And so it was funny because all of us thought, I guess, well, Scotty gonna set the alarm, or Max gonna set the alarm, or hey, all of us in this house, somebody's gonna set an alarm. So that was
we were the only ones that had to get up at 6 in the morning to be able to get down there to get the equipment in place for Secret Service to check it out with the dogs and such. So it was just like 3 of us. Everybody else was going to sleep a little later.
7 o'clock. 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Was one. So it was that was funny, but it's still everything went smoothly, man. The lady who helped us, the park ranger, I'm sorry I don't remember your name, Asian American park ranger, and because Secret Service, the communications that I heard about secondhand that we were getting from the Secret Service, they were going to force us to put the generators up on a stage that was metal stage. You know what I'm saying? Danger when you're dealing with electricity and all these electronics and things that run off electricity. No, it has to be on the ground, and then it has to be grounded, with copper wire and all. So, when I got there, I was expecting trouble, man, but she was was told to me, she had said, no, I heard her say it, that Secret Service likes to think they run Lafayette Square, but they don't, the Park Service. And she was very accommodating, man. So it was pretty much a smooth sailing after that.
Yeah, it definitely was, man. I'm sharing some of the articles and videos and stuff like that on New Abolitionist Radio so people can see what occurred in photos and in videos as much as I can. But it was truly epic, and it was very much needed. I know on a couple of occasions people kind of downplayed the idea that we had a rally and a march, but I think it also came from a place of not really understanding how this march and this rally plays in history. There's never been anything like this ever before. There's been a million marches, but there's never been a slavery abolitionist march like this since prior to the Emancipation Proclamation, because up until now, everybody had been bamboozled.
I don't think they were marching back then. Were they marching? I think they was pretty much just rallying back then.
Yes.
I don't think they was marching like today, because they didn't have as comfortable shoes as we got. I
see Tribal Rain is unmuted there.
Yeah, hey, Tribal Rain. Please chime in.
Yes. I just wanted to say that the March on Washington was a historical, magical event, something that I personally will remember for the rest of my life. And the young people that were there marching with us that showed out will remember it for the rest of their lives. It was something that was very much needed. I do wish there was more people that had showed up, but it was an excellent, excellent outcome.
Yes, and when she says she wished there was more people that showed up, don't underestimate the numbers, because it was, we went...
No, there was a number there.
Yeah, the numbers were there. There was no doubt about that. But we were hoping for millions, because if millions had came, we'd be changing the world today. Like, it'd be a different world today than it was yesterday, so to speak,
Yes.
But we had enough to really get this ball rolling and to impress upon the whole world that this is what we're dealing with now, is modern-day slavery and human trafficking, and all these narratives that take away from that are only confusing people.
Definitely.
Tribal, you were magnificent. For those that don't know, Tribal Rain is my wife. Her and I have been together in art and music and life for 30 years now. So she was there as one of the spokespeople as well. And she, instead of, I'm the speaker, she's the poet, more or less. So she got up there and did a couple of amazing poets. For the first time ever, she did a poem, I think was written specifically for that event, called America is Broken. And also Mourning Mothers, to impress upon those out there what is happening to our children. They were being slaughtered in the streets behind these slave catchers. Did an excellent job. You almost had an asthma attack, but you soldiered through that and did it still. That was awesome.
Yes, I did. The message had to be put out there. And there were people who were willing to listen. I'm hoping it touched people who weren't there also. It's time that our eyes become open to what is going on in our world today.
But
Not
Tribal...
just with...
Yeah, Tribal. Let's not forget the 16 sister cities that was in solidarity.
Yes.
And I've heard as many as 20, Scotty, in a couple of reports. So it's possible that we had 20 cities.
That is so beautiful.
Yes.
So beautiful.
And, we had on all I could pull up was stats for the 19th. I couldn't break it down by hours. I think I may be able to break it down by hour, but I can report conservatively that at least 600 people in 38 different countries tuned in between the hours of 12 and 5 p.m. when we were doing our best to stream it live. It wasn't the greatest audio experience. First time we tried to do that, lots of things was going wrong. But my primary focus was to make sure the PA system and everything was going, everything was working like it was supposed to be. Because remember one time we lost the PA system. I don't know if somebody unplugged it or if they said something on the stage that yanked it out. I don't know, but it was, I even found that people was trying to sabotage it. But I'm like, now who would just pull some copper wire out of a copper hose that's in the ground, that's grounding this generator so nobody gets electrocuted, so there's no chance for that kind of accident, without stealing the copper. Now, if they'd have stole the copper, then I would have understood. But they just pull out the wire from the copper pipe, the little skinny copper pipe. And so that's the kind of stuff I was dealing with. So I had a lot going on. But again, I'm glad the crowd and none of the speakers noticed all of this stuff that was going on behind the scenes.
Yes.
Yes. And it went peacefully and smoothly. I understand that in at least one city, armed men showed up. Part of what was, I believe is called the 3%ers or something like that, showed up with automatic weapons and full military gear and things like that. So that happened, I believe, out in Kansas City. And there was also an organization in Asheville that tried to sabotage some of the things that were going on there, a white organization that I heard reports of. So they tried. I mean, on a national scale, white supremacists did everything they could to distract from the Millions for Prisoners March on Washington. If you notice, all of these feints that they were pulling where they, faked out Durham, for instance, and all of these people showed up, those things were happening simultaneously with the march leading up into the very last days. And now if you look around, there's nothing happening. The last time I heard, today, the Southern Poverty Law Center said that they had 67 events scheduled and they canceled them all. So job well done is the way they're looking at it. They distracted from what was going on. Imagine if we'd have had those 40,000 people that was in, I think it was in Durham or Boston or one of those states as part of the march. Like I said, we could have changed, the world would be different today. But I think that the reverberations will continue to go out and we'll continue to push this. Just as we've done before it occurred, and what we'll continue to do after. This is a catalyst moment, I believe, in American history and possibly world history. Oh, I see Britt from Asheville is here. That's great. Britt, if you're on the line, just press ** to unmute yourself. I'd love to hear the story of what happened there. You can tell a little bit about what occurred there, both the good and the bad.
Well, we do have someone from the 717 area code who had unmuted themselves. So can we go to them first?
Sure. We're going to have a conversation tonight. So let's do.
Yeah,
you lead the way,
we
Scotty.
will leave the mics open as long as people mind their background noise. If I see background noise and it's interfering with the call, I'll just mute you and then you can unmute yourself. But 717. Please, thank you for calling in the New Abolitionists Radio as we discuss what happened over the weekend, primarily the Millions for Prisoners Human Rights March, calling for the removal of the slavery exception clause from the 13th Amendment in congressional hearings were the core demands. And just a great day in spreading abolitionism. So 717, if you would share your name. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Hey, Brother Scott, it's Brother Davis, man. How are you, everybody?
Peace,
hey, look,
Brother
I just
Davis.
wanted to call and let you know you guys did an exceptional job on Saturday, as well as being able to get the audio. I know you had some problems because there was forces working against you, but brothers, for doing a first, you cannot find nothing less than success in what you've achieved. And let me add this, that Harriet Tubman once said, "I would have freed more slaves if they would have known they were slaves." Excellent job, brothers. And once again, thanks, Black Talk Radio. Peace.
Well, indeed, brother. And, you know, when I sat up there as one of the speakers, most of the time that I sat there, I held a sign in my hand that said exactly that, because that's the problem. And, you know, I understand how Harriet felt at that time, and that is the problem. Big shout out to the organizers of this from IamWe, Ubuntu.com, the Crystal Roundtree and the organization IamWe, Prison Advocacy Network, for taking the reins and making this happen as it did, and to pulling together over 100 grassroots organizations and some, as we said, amazing speakers to come together past all boundaries to speak on this subject of modern slavery and the 13th Amendment.
Yeah, and that was great too. And, you know, there's some enemy propaganda out there who didn't even know what kind of rally he was at and just labeled it a Black Lives Matter rally. But they were allies, and these were like you mentioned, you know, dozens upon dozens of supporting organizations, including Black Talk Media Project, which of course is you know, manager of Black Talk Radio Network, Jailhouse Lawyers Speak. I mean, I could pull up the list. Like Max said, there's 100 or so of them. So yeah, that in itself was great, because we don't see eye to eye, or we don't have, when I say we, I'm talking about myself, Max, everybody that's been part of the New Abolitionist Radio family, and part of the group that we started 5 years ago on Facebook called Move to Abolish 21st Century Slavery. Our primary focus has always been the 13th Amendment, and we don't too much get into any kind of intersectionality, because we see slavery as the disease and all the slave catching and related type of activities that manifest in society as being symptoms or tentacles of slavery. So we have always focused on the 13th Amendment, which in 1971, Mr. Lee Wood wrote the book Prison Slavery, where he published and cited the 13th Amendment in that context. So this abolitionism is hundreds of years old, and it was just great to see how organizations who have, because some organizations have several agendas, nothing wrong with that. You know, you have several things that you're working on at several times. But we all agree that slavery has never been abolished. The 13th Amendment makes that perfectly clear, and we were there in solidarity to end slavery. That's simple. Let's go to our call. Looks like we have a call from 973 area code. Thank you for calling in the New Abolitionist Radio. Give us your name and go ahead with your question or comment. 973.
Hey, this is Yusuf Hassan. I'm actually online right now just trying to tag different people, trying to get them to call in from the different cities. You know, San Diego, San Jose, Kansas City. We had Omaha, Nebraska. I see Oakland, California, Riverside, California, Columbus, Ohio, Council Bluffs, Iowa. You know, we were all over the place. So
all over.
I'm really just listening in the background, but I mean, it was an amazing event. You know, I'm thankful to have been a part of it. You know, because you know, I mean, we know how much we talk about this, but it's good to see so many people from all over the country. Just starting from Friday night when we had the meet and greet dinner. You know, I mean, I hope there's footage of that somewhere, of that entire event.
Dude, you know we had that. Yusuf, you know we had the meet and greet one block from Frederick Douglass's house.
Wow, I didn't even know that, man. I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
wow.
I walked up to see it. 1 block away.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay, that's where you disappeared. We kept saying, "Where's Max?"
Hey, and Brother Yusuf, I also want to thank you, man, publicly for the wonderful digs that you were able to obtain for us to actually have, you know, some of that behind the scenes stuff that people didn't see was an intimate experience between abolitionists who had only communicated via social media or this radio program, but be able to break bread with each other and just have these powwow sessions around, you know, 21st century slavery and human trafficking. And, you know, that was just really a great experience itself right there. Just being
that was worth the trip by itself, man.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And you
just some of our downtime at the house, and you know, getting back to the dinner, you know, seeing that we had people come as far as Anchorage, Alaska, that come all the way to Washington D.C. That says a lot, man.
Dude, when they called out the states, they're like, where did everybody come from? And you heard like 30 states named off at the meet and greet alone. That was epic right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, to just show that this isn't just, you know, a couple of people, you know, talking about something. That this is a nationwide movement, and it's only going to build. It's going to build from there because, you know, people are waking up to it. I mean, I've been having all kinds of conversations. And one of the funny things that I'm seeing now is it's almost like now after the rally has happened, now people are starting to wake up and start commenting on different posts and everything. I'm like, wow, where were these people a week ago? You know, but, we broke the ice. Y'all know I've been saying that all weekend. You know, the seal has been broken. You know, that, you know, we gathered, you know, the largest gathering of abolitionists right out in the open. We didn't have to have a secret meeting somewhere. You know, we did it right out in the opening, right in the middle of the park. You know, I'm sure they were watching us from the White House, you know, because I'm sure they got word of it. You know, I mean, they shut streets down in Washington, D.C. for us. You know, that says a lot. That for us, they shut roads down in Washington, D.C. You know, so, you know, it's monumental what we did, you know, and so anybody that, I guess, has like a negative opinion as to anything that went on, you know, you have to look at all of the bright things that happened, you know, and I definitely have to give, you know, special shout out to you, Scotty, and definitely Greg Jacoy, because, you know, I called you guys the unsung heroes all weekend, man, because there's so much stuff going on behind the scenes that, you know, so much could have gone wrong. And, I mean, you guys, all of the downtime stuff that we got to do, going to the meet and greet dinner, going to the Ethiopian restaurant, you know, you guys didn't get to do any of that stuff, didn't really get to hang out with us because you guys were making sure that the wheels kept turning. So
without Greg Jacoy.
Y'all definitely need, you know, the accolades for that.
Definitely.
I don't know, I'm here.
What's up, Greg? Welcome to New Abolitionists Radio.
Y'all ain't got to talk about me like I can't hear you.
Greg is a member of the Green Party and has been active in organizing and political activities. As a matter of fact, he was working directly with David Colma, who ran for Congress in District 5 of South Carolina as an abolitionist. So the buildup has been a part of Greg's life now for a few years, working towards this goal. You must have been real proud too, brother.
Oh, man. Listen, first of all, thank you, Yusuf, I believe it was, who talked about the, although it may have been someone else, about how the things began on Friday. So I was thinking about the numbers who were there and what all went on, and it was, 5 hours long, and it was in the sun, and it was hot, and so on. And then I was like, wait a second, okay, so let's look at what has happened in the past that we all look to and say, now that was a turning moment in American history. How about the Seneca Falls Convention? Okay, 2 days, 2-day long convention. 300 people attended. There were many, 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 many times 300 people in Washington, D.C. for this gathering. We not only had a convention that started Friday with that meet and greet, and I don't want people to think that was a simple meet and greet like everybody shook hands and said, hi, where are you from? How was the travel? How did you, was traffic heavy? it was like a real conversation about what are we going to do to end slavery now. And then a march, and then a rally, and I guarantee you that everybody who was headed home from that march and rally headed home thinking about, what am I going to do next? And I just want to share one little thing with y'all, and then I'm going to try to hush up, and y'all know I'm not very good at that. So the day after, Monday, was the solar eclipse, right? So I drive over to my daughter and son-in-law's home, and I'm going to watch the solar eclipse with my granddaughters. And I said something to my daughter, my older daughter, about what we had been doing up in Washington. And I'm expecting to have to explain to my daughter, because we haven't really talked much about this issue. I'm expecting to have to explain to my daughter, what we're talking about when we talk about slavery. That we're not, as we say repeatedly, we're not talking about virtual slavery. We're not talking about almost slavery. We're talking about slavery. And I didn't have to explain a thing to her. She knew it. Boom, right away. She was like, oh, it's terrible. This and this and this and this. Boom, done. So even without me going out of my way to educate my daughter, and I don't even think that it happened because she's my daughter. I think this is in the universe. I think that the planet, the psyche of humanity is so done with slavery, and we've just got to push it that over the line and say, now and forevermore, this cannot be. Human beings cannot have human property. Not acceptable.
Not acceptable. Amen, man. If you're on the line and you want to speak up, just press ***. If you're already open up, just say what you got to say. Like Scotty said, we'll try to keep it where we're not talking over each other.
Well, I know I, for one, wish to thank all the donors who made it possible to get this trip on the road. There were a few out there who went out of their way, like Kali.
Yes.
Amen. Thank you.
Everybody who went out of their way with Black Talk Radio Network donors, anyone at all who assisted us. I just want to say thank you, because without you, it would not have occurred.
Amen to that. Thank you so much. Anyone else on the line who want to join in and share their experiences? We're still waiting to hear from Britt from Asheville. He has a story that unfolded out of there.
I'm hoping Layla.
And Layla Aziz, yes.
We do.
I see San Diego's tuning in right now. Maybe San Diego has something to say too.
Yes, I do want to also reiterate what Tribal Reign said, and I want to thank Ramon, L.A. Ramon, part of the BTR community, longtime listener of Black Talk Radio Network. I mean, from designing the sound system, and I got compliments from people who said that you could hear that rap. If you were in that area, you heard that. So people who weren't even there for the rally never heard nothing about abolitionists. If they were passing it, they came to visit the White House and they walked down that way, they heard an abolitionist message. So let's not forget that. So L.A. Ramon played a big role in helping me pre-plan the audio system layout and all of that. And then Zach at Guitar Center gave me a hassle-free, I'm coming from out of state with out-of-state license, all of that. Hassle-free experience, got the equipment in less than an hour, loaded up, moved the equipment. That's what me and Greg was doing while everybody was at the meet and greet. So, just a hassle-free experience. And again, as Tribal said, though, it was Black Talk Radio donors who sponsored the audio portion, which should have failed to us. We're Black Talk Radio. So,
Right.
So I just want to thank the donors as well. It wouldn't have went down without you. Played a big role. We got a call from 828. Please watch your background noise if you're on the line. Please watch your background noise. I did see unmute on the board 828. Thank you for calling in to New Abolitionist Radio. Please share your name and your question or comment.
Hello, this is 828. This is Britt.
Hey, Britt. Welcome to New Abolitionist Radio, and thank you guys for pulling together what you did in Asheville. I heard that you were very successful, worked directly with the chief of police who made sure that everything ran well. Awesome, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it was definitely a pretty straightforward event for us. I definitely, in the beginning, wanted to stick with kind of the format that I was just seeing as far as a march and a rally. But once I was able to connect with Sharon Smith and Asheville Black Lives Matter, they had basically, the Asheville isn't big enough to kind of support that, so we just worked with it and made it happen. So, as far as, I don't know. It was really, I'm definitely looking forward to continuing events like this here and just supporting the issue.
Now, did you have any issues or anything that went wrong while you were there? Because I know in Washington we had at least one person that tried to sabotage the event, and then some supposedly allies went and took that and said it was about a Black Lives Matter rally that went wrong. So where they interviewed this one guy.
No, that wasn't no ally, Max. That wasn't an ally. That was some YouTuber, probably from the right wing, called himself Liberty Columnist. That was him. That wasn't a so-called ally.
Okay,
that
so
was
he's not an ally.
He trolled the event. Trolled the event.
All right.
But,
well, look, we got a troll that came in, and we handled it without anybody going to jail.
Yeah. Go ahead, Britt. It sounds like you're kind of speechless that you had such a great abolitionist experience there in Asheville.
Well, I was really blindsided by just some folks in my personal network. So it was really unfortunate that it happened just kind of the night before, while I was at work. And unfortunately, I had left the chat that I was in, and that I had started to kind of get some just a group of lookouts for the event. That was basically the main kind of thing for me. I just had an experience where quite recently where I just felt like that was kind of a priority. So, and it's just unfortunately leaving that chat, led to a whole lot of just miscommunication and escalation. I'm not even privy to it now. So,
okay, it went off without a hit. That's all that matters, right?
That's right. Hit off on the internet, and it just. The event went great. It's just unfortunate that someone from my who I thought was on my side ended up attacking one of our main speakers over kind of political differences. So I don't know if it was conscious sabotage or not, but it definitely kind of destabilized me in terms of trying to hold a plan together to follow through. But like I said, committed to just pushing it. So,
thank you, Brett. I appreciate that, man, for sharing your experiences. We already know that for this topic, there's a lot of us who have been in the trenches for a long time who have never really considered the idea that this might actually be slavery, and we've been fighting in different ways. And, coming across that border from you can reform it to it's slavery and you have to use abolition is sometimes difficult, and it can create, arguments over the issue.
Well, I'm grateful to just be able to learn. I definitely have learned a lot. This is the first kind of thing I've pulled together, and I have a lot to look forward to as far as trying to do more of this. So thank you so much, guys.
Word. Thank you, Brett. Do we have any other callers that'd like to comment on your experience at the various marches across America today that happened on the 19th? Or anybody from the D.C. area, California area? See, we have a few online. Just press ** to unmute yourself. Hello?
Hey, Max. I think I'm online. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Who is this?
Oh, it's J9.
Hey, Jay.
Rhode Island.
J9.
Hey,
J9. Yes,
Hey,
indeed.
I couldn't figure out if I had, unmuted myself properly, and then I forgot to mute myself, and I heard Scotty yelling at me for cooking dinner. I was like, oh, that's right, mute it. I got very confused.
For those that don't know, J9 is a longtime abolitionist, also one of the spokespeople for the Wounded Warriors Project. She's a veteran herself of the United States military and has been side by side with us in this fight for years now.
Yes.
And she came in from Rhode Island, representing Rhode Island, and Rhode Island is the only state in the Union that actually abolished slavery in their constitution without a caveat. And she shared the experience with us. Tell us anything you want to.
For the listeners, though, that have seen the video of us in the Lincoln Memorial, there's J9, there's Jess. Okay, so she's in that video.
I'm the person who jumped in with tribal and said the revolution will make some white people nervous. That's kind of an inside political But no, so I just so the minute I heard that this event was going on, I knew I was gonna not have my kids with me. They go to the Dutch summer, and I just knew I was gonna be there. And that was kind of the last trip that I took on my kind of summer without my kids, because I couldn't be anywhere else because it's so important. And what I felt as I witnessed so many different things. I'm still trying to unpack a lot of the things that I've witnessed, but I definitely saw a lot of different people with a lot of different ideologies and kind of political leanings. And for the most part, most people were definitely gelling around it's actually common sense that slavery still exists. And it's not this kind of external, thing that is so kind of out there that you have to really explain. And that was really powerful to see, and also powerful to be there to listen to former political prisoners and formerly incarcerated people basically kind of give their testimony, whether it had been 40 years ago or 10 years ago, that this is actually what is taking place. So you don't need to read a think piece. You don't need to read a book. You don't, well, you should, but you don't need to do all this extra stuff in order to understand how it operates. And that to me was very, very powerful. And then I think the guy with the sign who held that sign all day long.
Andrew.
Yes, he was wonderful.
Yes, and that also showed me something else. And even though the person who tried to disrupt tries to claim, oh, I'm a veteran, that really doesn't mean anything to a lot of things. That man was a Marine veteran. And and some of the groups that came in the beginning when we were yelling and screaming and marching and all that kind of fun stuff, I guess, because to me it's fun. I'll bring more drums next time. We have one. That's not enough. He stayed there the whole day, dedicated, and I understand that it was hot, and I understand it was uncomfortable. It was. I understand these things are real, and some people cannot stay because of the heat. But that man stayed there with the discipline of a Marine, and that kind of as these other groups left.
Hello?
I think we might have lost you, Jay. There you go. We can hear you now. You said that the other groups left.
Yeah, Jess, let me see. I do see her still on the board. Let me mute you and unmute you, see if that'll clear up the line. But yeah, the propaganda media that was posted on YouTube by that guy, that troll, who I said, man, you wasted all that wonderful equipment. He had some nice equipment, made a nice video, but, he trolled us. He didn't interview anyone. He came there with a preconceived notion. And I told him, you're purposely falsely titling your videos. and you trying to say a black vet stands up to Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter have declared themselves abolitionists against 13th Amendment slavery. They endorsed the rally. They were there, but it was an abolitionist event. Again, 100 different organizations sponsored this event or endorsed the event. And then, the little video he posted was of me, stopping, getting in front of this guy, in case he tried to do something to the speaker, and just to stop, to calm him down and usher him off to the side so that we could continue on with the rally. That I'm a veteran too, and if the guy had asked me, since me and the guy primarily had the words when he came to the stage, I'd have pulled out my veterans healthcare card on him. So, they try to use all kind of different tools and talking points and, the whole veteran, playing the veteran card. But I didn't know Andrew was a veteran. And Andrew, after standing out there with that sign with Martin Luther King's face on it and saying jobs and not war, and if I remember what his sign said, but he stood out there that whole 5 hours and then afterwards help us load equipment. So shout out to Andrew.
Yep.
But go ahead, Jess. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And Tyler.
No, that's okay. I realized that I had actually muted myself, so I was literally talking to no one outside. That was great. So I have no idea where I left off, which is
you
also
said that
part
some
of my
groups
life.
left after the march or something like that.
Yeah, well, some people left. Groups left. They came with all their stuff, and it was almost not like it was a photo op. I'm not saying it was a photo op, but they came with their stuff, and then they left. And then you have Andrew, he stayed there the whole time. And there were just some people that were so dedicated, they stayed the whole time. And I think that's a really good kind of thinking about people in that heat, because it was hot. I don't understand that heat, but because I'm from the Northeast. So it was hot, and people stayed. And, definitely, people who are older, who probably shouldn't be in the heat, were in the heat, stayed. The people who were there at the end, that's the type of dedication it's going to take. And that's the type of dedication and discipline that we all need to harness within ourselves in order to keep this moving forward. That was a very shorter explanation of the whole soliloquy I just did in my backyard.
Word. I think we even got Hannah on the line, too. Hannah was one of the people that stayed at Abolitionist HQ, along with Yusef and Jessica and myself and Tut and Scotty and a number of others. And I think she had one of the most powerful speeches of the evening. She really took it home. She stomped it into the ground. She didn't pull no punches. She didn't mess around with no, false language or wrong language, and she really hammered it home. I know that a couple times she had some adult language, but excuse me, Scotty?
No, I was just going to say, I would definitely say that among about 4 speakers, now remember, it was 26 speakers if we include the audio from Mamiya. But I definitely would agree that Hannah had one of the more memorable speeches, very forceful and strong, and there was no doubt about the conviction in her voice. Thank you for joining us tonight, Hannah.
You're welcome. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. There's kind of a loud noise behind you, but we can certainly hear you.
I'm outside, but is that better?
Yes, much better.
Okay, peace, everyone. I appreciate all the positive feedback on my speech. I just feel like we need to stop cutting around the BS. I'm not trying to use adult language on your show. But I just feel like that in general, for some, the message wasn't clear, and it should have been more clear before they spoke. Because when you go to a march or you speak at a march or a rally, you want to have one general message, one general consensus about the point of the march. And we've marched and rallied for Black Lives Matter, police brutality, etc. But we are not doing that the same when it comes to slavery, and that's the root of it all. So if we want to get to the nitty-gritty of everything, we have to speak and be literal in our speech and say that it's slavery. And I'm not sure as to why people are so scared to call it slavery. I think it's more of a new concept, actually, for a lot of people to like just wrap their heads around it. But I've spoken to people since I came back from the march that never knew like about the 13th Amendment, and in those few moments of speaking to them and breaking it down, they get it. The 13th Amendment clause, rather. I enjoyed the march. It was a historical event, and I feel like that we shouldn't be so quick. And I'm not saying you are, but just in general, I feel like we shouldn't be so quick to critique it overall, because the meat of it was good, and those who are already aware about abolitionism and about the truth of the 13th Amendment clause, they benefited. They're going to benefit. But the sad part is that because the message wasn't clear in some speakers, in some of the speeches, and that could be due to lack of ignorance or due to ignorance or arrogance. It could be either or. But because the speech wasn't clear, the message rather, it could have left some people, confused. It's like, what is this mass incarceration? I hear some people saying slavery. What is this person talking about? So I just expected a little bit more, but at the same time, I'm not going to critique it because this is the first of its kind. This is a historic march, and it doesn't take but a few people to make change. And we've seen that so many times in history, where it only takes a few abolitionists or a few civil rights leaders to make actual change. It doesn't take a bunch of people. So I don't know how to explain this.
Yeah.
I hope you understand what I'm saying. But even with the Black Panther Party, it was only a few of them. That's nationwide, not just in one city. A few of them nationwide, but they made so much changes in the Black community, and that's when they became a target and a threat. And of course, the government had to get rid of them. But their powerful effect is still felt 50 plus years later. And you have a lot of organizations like People's Justice Project. We try to follow as much as we can. We try to emulate the method of the Black Panther Party, which is servicing the community, because we know that the government's not going to service the community or service us like we can service our own. And then protecting the community, advocating for the community, organizing around the community's needs, bringing awareness to the community, the ills of the community that's brought on by state violence. So I just feel like the message was a little bit lost, but with the powerful speakers, especially at the end when Max shut it down again, when he shut it down again, it made the message clear. But unfortunately, there were not that many people left. I do feel like some things could have been differently, and I do honestly think that this shouldn't be just a one-time march. I really feel like that we need to be more consistent. And I understand that we are doing, behind the scenes, we are trying to work to get the clause removed. But awareness needs to still be shown on the streets.
Hannah,
so I advise, yes.
I just had that conversation with Max today, and that new Abolitionist Radio that we need to do, not like a 7-city tour, go out there on the road, but have an event like we had in Washington, D.C., but change the location. So Hannah X might host it in her city one year, and then the next year, Yusef might host it in his city that year, and we just keep it going and Max said, well, how long you think we got to keep fighting slavery? And I'm like, hey, I'm just long-term planning, bro. I'm just long-term planning. So I am definitely with you on that. And you mentioned the Black Panthers. And while Robert King was the last speaker, member of the Angola 3, Black Panther Party member, although Mr. Woodfox was not a speaker, he was there. And that was just so real for me because I have been reporting on these brothers' cases over the years, over the past 5-6 years through Political Prisoner Radio, and then just sharing, it was great to meet Jihad from Jericho. First time I ever met him, after talking to him, doing all of this online. in telephone communication.
Right.
And that was just so surreal for me to finally be able to occupy the same space and to feed off of that energy that these strong spirits represented. So I do want to, and again, we got open lines tonight. We're coming up on our first break, but I want to segue and then come back after the break. But segue, and Jared Ball of I Mix What I Like did a interview with Albert Wood Fox, who had been tortured in solitary confinement for over 40 years. And his shirt, I love this shirt. His shirt had Amend the 13th on it. He was just very clear, this is slavery. And so I want to play a portion of that interview that Jared Ball did. We'll take the break first. Then we'll play the interview that Jared Ball did, just a portion of the interview he did with Albert Wood Fox, Black Panther, Angola 3, former political prisoner, and then we'll go back to the open floor. You're listening. Max, you want to take us to the break?
Yes, sir. You're listening to New Abolitionist Radio here on the Black Talk Radio Network, and we're discussing the historic Millions for Prisoners Human Rights March on Washington, D.C. We'll be right back after these messages.
Remember to watch your background noise, please.
I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Black Talk Radio, since 2008, providing new black media for the masses.
In the world, and we can start doing something about mass prison incarceration. We can destroy the private prison industrial complex, which is exploiting prisoners, slave labor under the 13th Amendment. We're trying to demand a hearing before a U.S. Congress so that we can address this and make the people in America and the world realize that slavery in America is still here and it's legal. And the 13th Amendment only changes slave ownership from the individual to the states and the federal government. And you have a situation now where these major corporations start to sign these sweetheart deals with the Department of Corrections throughout America, and they are exploiting slave labor. And the ironic thing about it is that while they will exploit the labor while you're in prison, if you're lucky enough to get out, they won't give you a job because you're an ex-convict, How ironic, how hypocritical, And at some
point, you could only work if you're in prison.
Yeah, and as a legal slave of the state, So, at some point in time, Robert and I are working towards accumulating a list of some of these corporations and making it available to the American public and call for a boycott of whatever products that these people are selling to the American public and around the world because of the fact that a lot of it is being produced by slave labor in the prisons throughout this country. So that's a part of what we're struggling to do right now.
Max?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Well, I was tossing it to you, bro, but I do want, if Greg is still on the line, if he would share with me, because he actually isn't the only person that shared this with me. One other person that was in attendance, I don't know their name, they were in the crowd and spoke to me and said it was worth that trip just to see Robert King and Albert Woodfox. And Greg expressed something similar to me. Greg, did you want to comment on
absolutely.
what that was like for you?
Absolutely. Are we ready now? Are we on the air?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. How was that for me? Yeah, okay, so I have spent the last probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 years knowing who these people were and knowing what our government has done in our name to them. And I don't care that it was the state of Louisiana instead of the United States of America. It was still USA Inc. versus freedom fighters. And these gentlemen put up with just, well, they didn't put up with. They suffered heartbreaking
torture. 29 years in
torture,
solitary
yes.
confinement, like inhuman
Exactly.
torture.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, so, I mean, this is, I almost feel like I can't talk about this now that I've met Mr. Woodfox in person. It's like, okay, now that I know you in person, I want to, like, be protective of him, but we can't do that. He doesn't, for one thing, he doesn't need my protection, right? This man he had been subject to a cavity search every time he left and re-entered his prison cell for years and years. And finally, a federal judge, tell me if I'm wrong, guys, I'm pretty sure I've got this is the right story for the right man. Finally, a federal judge was like, you cannot do this, period, and this must stop now, okay? They waited until that judge died, and the day after he died, they went right back to that stuff. This is nothing but torture. So not only are we authorizing enslavement, we're authorizing all the things that come naturally with enslavement. That is the right to beat, the right to abuse, the right to torture, the right to kill. The only thing that we don't do in this current system that we did under the old system is take someone's child and put them to work immediately upon them hitting the age where they can lift a bag and get to work. That's the only, well, I'm probably exaggerating, but that's the only interest. It's the only difference that comes to my mind right now. And getting to meet these gentlemen who suffered so much with such incredible, unbelievable dignity was a peak experience. You know, it was like meeting a hero that didn't let you down when you met them.
You know, if you remember, one of the members was released just a few months.
Like 2 days before he died. No, it was
one of the members
not a
was
few
released.
months. It was
like a month before he passed.
Yeah, Herman Wallace.
Herman Wallace, yeah, he was dying of cancer, and he had this dream of a house he wanted to. Amazing, man.
So I wanted to toss it back to Hannah because I kind of, short circuited her a little bit. But Hannah, did you get to, spend any one-on-one time or exchange some words with Robert King, or did you meet anyone, that you had a really, special experience meeting on that abolitionist field that day?
Because I didn't go to the march, but I was at the rally and I stayed for the whole time. A lot of different people that I've met that that left not a good impression, but left me like, wow. And I would say it was basically Angola 3, because not only that did they come out there, well, not they, but Richard come out there and he spoke and he just said it what it was in the best way that he could. it's just more of an honor for someone from the Black Panther Party whom I admire to be at such a historical march and be in solidarity with us, even though he's been through violence and white supremacy. It was just an honor, especially me being someone so young and like watching like documentaries on the Black Panther Party when I was a kid. I wanted to be a part of the Black Panther Party. So that's just their presence there, and then Ramona Africa as well, and the one speaker from Jericho. I liked him when the Jericho movement. I don't remember his name. Oh, you mentioned him though, Scotty. Jamil, I think his name is. The guy
can y'all hear me?
The white.
Can y'all hear me?
We can now, yes.
I can hear you now.
Yeah, that was Jihad Abdul Mohammed. He is one of the founders and former political prisoner and founder of Jericho movement. Yeah, and it was also nice to hear him speak, and the brother from Boston telling his story, the way he told it in such a poetic form. And what also stuck out to me is how, I'm going to call him a race trading coon, because you don't come up to, he clearly hears what we're talking about, and then he sees his brother on stage, his black brother on stage, and then he interrupts him, and that really honestly pissed me off, because it's disrespectful, and I expect that from a white racist. I expect that from a cop. But I don't really expect that to see it in person from someone that's one of our black brothers. And whether he's ignorant, he just came at him rough, and no one knew what to expect. So it had everyone on guard for a moment, and it was like, it wasn't like, but he was a plant, because as soon as that happened, the police came closer than they were ever the whole day. So I know it was a plant just to get distracted and to get our message, to cloud our message. But the most influential people that I met were the Angola Three, just from what they've been through, and the sister from the Move 85. And what really set it off was when brother, I always mess his name up, Abu Jamal Mumia. When he called it. Mumia Abu Jamal, thank you. I always mess it up. I always confuse it, mix it up. But when he called in, that was really powerful, and I'm glad we were able to experience that. And that whole day was like, it was just a blessing for me. I'm new to organizing. I've only been organizing a year almost since the death of Tyree King, like actively organizing in the streets. So to have the honor to speak at such a historic march in Washington, D.C. with like-minded abolitionists, it was truly a blessing. And I thank everyone that, supported me, and that everyone that supports the movement. I just want to remind everybody that, again, like, it doesn't take but a few of us to get this abolished. And like Harriet Tubman said, I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they had known they were slaves. So I just don't try to really focus that much on people who are willfully ignorant about anything that's going on within the Black community, because they're choosing to be ignorant. Yes, it's good to be patient and not look down on people, and I don't do that, but I cannot continue to waste my time with folks that see the knowledge and don't want to reach for it. But you could take a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. Hannah, in that guy's defense, I could tell within a few minutes of talking to him. Now, I don't know if he was a veteran or not, but he is a veteran. A high percentage of them suffer from mental illness, PTSD, being chewed up by the military-industrial complex. Or he could have been high on amphetamines by the way he was. You notice how he was kind of hyperactive. And when I got to see some of the footage, afterwards that troll made, I'm glad he made the footage. I can cut out his trolling, but you see the guy just running. He, came into the area, and I'm talking about the black guy that tried to bum rush the stage. He came running from towards the White House from that way. And he just cut right through the crowd. So it wasn't like he was standing there listening. He just can't. He heard a few words over that PA system. He came running over there, and what happened. But we were able to non-violently and professionally handle that and pull him off to the side. And then that troll that was out there, then did a little interview of the guy. And I watched the interview, and that man was not in his right mind. Stuff like that happens all the time at public events. And so I don't think that it was really that he was opposed to what was going on. I think that he was suffering from mental illness and didn't know. Because in that interview, he indicated that he had been arrested a number of times and going before the judge. But like I said, he was very incoherent, and he was like kind of babbling and speed talking. And so, but I mean, just to show to me, anybody that watched that footage, how come the slave catchers can't handle such disturbances non-violently?
Right. That's why we need to abolish them. We do not need police in our neighborhoods or even in our surroundings to overtly aggressively police us and unable to de-escalate situations without killing us or somehow brutalizing us. And this is why I made sure I spoke about the police, because of everything that just goes in Columbus, Ohio, and before I became activist in Columbus, Ohio, just everything that's going on in the nation. And that's what they're made for. That's what they do. They're here to only abuse us and capture us. That's what they were created for. They were never created to protect and serve. And I just felt like it was very important to link the two. And that's why I spoke about them. That's why I dedicated my speech to Tyree King, who was killed last year, and the anniversary of his death is coming up shortly on September 14th.
Go ahead,
Max.
After that guy interrupted us, who was speaking while all that distraction was going on? Me. You can hear me in the background. So while all this distraction is going on, that was my time to speak.
Yep.
But we got him out of there pretty quick, though. That disturbance wasn't like 5 minutes. I mean, it seemed like in the moment it was eternity, but I think we handled that quite professionally, and I appreciate all the brothers, that came to talk to this brother and usher him off to the side, non-violently get him calmed down. And that was Jihad. Jihad is the one who really calmed him down, so it was great. Looks like somebody from San Diego area wants to chime in. You're on New Abolitionist Radio. Thank you for joining us. Go ahead with your name and your question or comment.
First, this is Layla Aziz. I want to say, Hannah, I love you. Your speech was so...
Peace, Layla. Welcome to New Abolitionist Radio.
Yes, yes. I can't wait to meet everyone in person. That's the biggest downer for me, that I didn't go to D.C. I went to the Riverside one, because you guys are family. And I feel as though we've developed that. One thing that I believe Hannah said that I really want to talk about, though, is this bus trip. And then someone else chimed in on the 17-day bus trip. We need to figure out how we can get Max and Scotty and possibly the Angola 3 on this and have scheduling with all of these local organizations we've created to get you guys in front of the people. So we need to raise some money.
Yeah, that's what we've been thinking about, too. And it's one of the reasons why today I'm officially moving from Facebook to the Black Talk Radio Network community here, where we have our own community. I mean, it's not a whole lot of people there, but maybe if I go, others will follow me behind. I'm tired of building Zuckerberg's community. I want to build something lasting for us. So as of today,
Max,
I'm on the Black Talk Radio Network.
Well, Max, and this is not a shameless plug because we're a nonprofit organization, but we're one BTR community, which is a social network similar to Facebook. We don't have all the bells and whistles, but it's a social media community. You can do all the basic stuff you do on social media. So part of the way we funded the DC trip was, we had hit our 1-year anniversary in August, and some of those who had taken a $24 a year subscription out a year ago, some of those subscriptions renewed. So we were able, and so it wasn't just that people on the network said we need our own social media community because of X, Y, and Z, but I also looked at it as a way for us to remain non-corporatized and fund our own stuff with just a lot of people pitching in pennies, or in this case, $24 for a year of social media. You get $1 a week, $5 a month, but most people get $24 a year. And that is how we can fund stuff like we're discussing now. So it's not, I'm not shamelessly plugging it, but I'm just trying to integrate. I live in a capitalistic system, so I'm trying to use capitalism to fund my social programming as well as my abolitionist.
And we can upgrade it as we go along. It will improve. There's no doubt about that. Hey, Layla, can you tell us about some of the events that occurred in San Diego too, and your experiences over there, and how you felt and things like that?
Two mothers who have sons in prison in Riverside actually did it in Southern California, and there was another rally in Los Angeles, and another one in San Jose. So I went to the Riverside rally. It took me about 2 hours to drive. There was nothing, and in my car was about 5 of us, and then in another car I think it was about 4. So we all went up there, and when I got there was a beautiful stage. There was a banner. There was water. There were T-shirts. Everything that you needed, and there were people. And they were on a megaphone. I had no idea. I did see a speaker there. I had no idea that the speaker system didn't work because we used the megaphone, so I didn't know until they told me. And I thought it was a phenomenal event. And a lot of it transpired because one of the women could not go to D.C., and she became very upset. And they said, let's just do it here. No one was listening to them. No one would work with them. And somehow they dug deep, these two women, Anna and Cecilia, and they got it done. And Marissa, she helped too. And I was just so proud of them. Afterwards, they had Black Lives Matter there. They had All of Us or None there. They had Punks in Progress, which helped with the organizing and had you on their show, Max. I saw them do some phenomenal things. And one thing I want to be very clear on, I was just a speaker there. The organizers of Riverside were Anna and Cecilia, and they did a phenomenal job. At this point, I'm looking at what are our strengths. I'm kind of fired up. We need to have another conversation because we need to get to one of these foundations, and we need to have a plan and a strategy of who to put you guys in front of, and we need to fund a 17-day road trip all across the United States, probably longer than that. Do you guys work?
A 13-day road trip.
Okay.
It would be more, I guess, significant, 13.
And Max, I've been talking about taking the show on the road.
I am transcribing because I heard your speech loud and clear, Max. I didn't hear the guy yelling in the background. I must have zoned in or something. I didn't realize they were at the same time. But I'm going to transcribe your speech. I'm going to transcribe Hannah's speech, and many of the other speeches, and I'm going to send them into the prison so they know exactly what you guys said out there and to even build it more. So I'm just excited about what you guys did. I thought it was phenomenal. I'll make sure I send you the speeches because sometimes you get the words wrong when you're transcribing so that you can look it over and say, okay, I didn't say this. This is what I said. And we can get the right words in there. But the message was clear. I did hear, I think, Hannah say that there were other speakers who their message wasn't as clear. I don't think I listened to their message, and that's why I didn't hear that. But I know that you guys, and I've learned so much about my messaging through you guys. Now, my message is clear because I was schooled by the best. And I'm not tooting your horn because this is serious business, what we're going to do.
You're right.
And you have, and I paid attention, and that's why my message is clear. I still want you to tell me how that other interview went. There's some things I want to do a little bit better, but I'll talk to you offline. Don't embarrass me. But because I really want to hear what you have to say. We got to get you guys on the road. Like, seriously, we have to have a plan to do that where you're compensated for the time you're going to miss, where you eat food, lodging, gas. We have to make that happen, where you're in front of every legislature that we need you to be in front of, every organization as we build. And I'll be moving to Black Talk Radio today. I didn't realize that was going on, so I will make sure I do that today.
Awesome. If I might just say a couple things. One, we didn't have any real, as far as I know, there was nobody videotaping the entire event whose job it was to videotape the entire event, which is kind of a loss towards history. But a lot of people individually videotaped them. Right now, we have no record of Tribal Rain's performance, and we're hoping somebody videotaped Tribal Rain doing her poetry there. We know we have audio of it on Black Talk Radio, but no video. So if you have videos, please make sure you share them or tag us, Max Parthas, Scotty Reid, New Abolitionist Radio, any of that, Leila Aziz, Hannah, anybody that's part of the movement, and they'll get it to us so we can start compiling this stuff for historical purposes. And also, when you talked about messages, I just want to mention about my speech. I gave the speech of my freaking life. Like, really. I spent so much time studying and cramming and writing down what I was going to say and do. And then when things unfolded as they did with the confusing message, I threw all of that out the window and let the Spirit speak through me. Like, I just spoke right off the top and let the Spirit speak through me and let the Lord bless my words so people could hear me. And the message of abolitionism was not as clear as I had wanted it to be or hoped it would be. We had at least several speakers that got up there and kept talking about mass incarceration. And we're like, yo, didn't you read the bill? Didn't you see the signs? We're not talking about mass incarceration. We're talking about slavery.
That programming.
And you need to get your message straight.
Max, that's that programming. And I understand now what you were saying about to me at the rally about some of the chants during the march. But as was mentioned earlier, I'm really learning to develop my patience because the programming is real. You know what I'm saying? The programming is real. And mass media has been programming people with the term mass incarceration in the new Jim Crow for so long that it's just taken some people who are well-meaning and are committed to their activism, but they just you have to be intentional with your words. I think maybe one of the speakers said that, maybe Robert King said that you have to be intentional with your words. And that's something I've certainly said, over and over during the years and to whoever will listen. It's slavery. It's one word. It's easier than mass incarceration because that's two words. You save people time by just calling it slavery. So, but we do have to be patient, and we have to have those conversations afterwards with those people and tell them we're trying to be on the same page. It's actually what the 13th Amendment doesn't have mass incarceration in it. And if we got to pull out the 13th Amendment, we have, it's sort of like we're deprogramming. It's not sort of like we are deprogramming people. With that,
interjection, Scotty.
Yeah.
As you know, my daughter went into labor while we were up there speaking at the march. And she's in labor and delivery right now, having birth to our granddaughter right now.
Wow. Happy birthday.
She's born in an incredible time, indeed.
An incredible time.
Wonderful.
We got to get this job done before she comes of age. Go ahead. Somebody was trying to speak.
Mic is open if somebody wanted to speak. We heard somebody.
No, I was just saying that's an auspicious time. That's congratulations, Max and Tribal.
We can hear you, in the background. Who is that? And thank you, Greg. Thank you.
It's Anne-Marie.
Hey, Anne-Marie, my fellow bully.
Hi, Anne.
Hello. I'm sitting here. I finally stopped doing the dishes.
I finally got to meet you. Me and Anne-Marie in the same room was like Godzilla and Mothra up there.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm on muzzle right now because my husband and I are still under the thumb of the system, and the only reason, and I wanted to give a shout out to everyone who could not attend because they were on probation and parole, and their officers would not let them leave. So I wanted to mention them. And, like I had mentioned, the only reason we got to go is we're in a limbo system where our sentence was stayed. So I'm not officially sentenced, even though I am. I'm on post-conviction bail, and a lot of people, what's interesting when you guys talk about all the tentacles of the system. This is a part of the system that most people don't know anything about because it's an unusual circumstance. So again, I wanted to just mention everybody who couldn't be there, and I was saddened by that. But otherwise, we were there for them. All of us were there for them, and we were there for the people inside who couldn't get out.
Amen. Like my son couldn't attend because probation wouldn't let him. There was a lot of people that couldn't attend because probation wouldn't let them. The system was well aware of what we were doing, which is why I'm clearly saying that this white supremacist movement was a distraction from what we were doing. They locked down prisons. Entire states' prisons were put on lockdown, like Florida, for instance, in anticipation of the march. And then some of the prisons, people marched around the prisons. I believe that happened in the Kansas City marches. They marched around the prisons. So the prisoners who were political prisoners that were inside could look out and see what people were doing for them and with them at the same time. I thought that was pretty amazing.
Well, Max, you know, from what I've been reading and the intelligence I've been gathering, I would just say a lot of things happened that weekend. And I'm not aware of any Klan rallies or anything like that. I heard about some noise, but it was like in Charlotte, for example. I read that on the smartphone while I was in D.C. I was like, who's holding a rally in Charlotte on August the 19th and why? And it was a rally organized for Heather Heyer. Isn't that the casualty, the victim of the terrorists in Charlottesville? So it was a lot of rallies. I don't want to say it was the ACLU. I don't want to say it was the SPLC. But I think some organization playing these rallies. I think the NAACP, North Carolina, might have been involved in what have you. So there's been a lot of organization against white supremacy. That's the word they've been using. But again, as I've tried to stress to my brothers and sisters who are in the counter-racist movement, who think that white supremacy is the system that we're battling against, again, if you do the research, you'll find that race-based laws were passed during the colonial period on this landmass to ensure slavery, to enforce a race-based slavery. Okay, so that history shows that white supremacy has been used as a tool to ensure that slavery exists. Okay, so
when we were coming home on Sunday, Reverend Barber used to be in charge of the North Carolina.
He still is.
NAACP, and he left. He just recently left. He's no longer in that position.
No, that's not true. I just watched a video of him giving a press conference 2 days ago.
He was. We caught a little bit of it on the radio coming in because he was leaving to head up the poor people's.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard that news.
Yeah, but we had heard him along with what you're talking about is. He said that you have to worry more about the statutes with a T than the statues. Just what you said. So we had heard that when we were driving. I guess it was like Sunday evening. We were in traffic so long I lost track of the time. But that's what he was talking about. The statutes, the whole legal system. Has always been used as a system of oppression because it by definition, one group is writing laws and they are oppressing someone else. So
enslaving people with
Too
laws.
radical.
Yeah, and enslaving people through laws. But what I really want to say to the people who turned out to those demonstrations against white supremacy is to consider abolitionism. Why I'm not saying white supremacy don't exist. I'm saying it's a tool to enslave people. Slavery is the disease. White supremacy is just one of the tentacles and tools of enforcement. But those people who turned out to those rallies, I think if we point out to them that those are actual monuments to slavery. Okay? So make your connection to the slavery past to the slavery present. And after you get through taking these, well, I'm going to include myself. Because prior to all of this, I had written the ACLU in North Carolina to challenge North Carolina state laws protecting those statutes based on the 14th Amendment, which outlawed the Confederacy. And then just playing the U.S. citizen card, although I don't identify in that manner, I'll play that card in court, so I'm with that. But I also realize, though, it's also, connected to present day slavery. So I think that camp over there are right for the picking, to converting to abolitionists. I'll be quiet now.
All right. If we have anybody who hasn't had an opportunity to talk, please chime in. Just press ** on your cell phone, or I believe there's a way you can click it if you're listening online with earphones. You can even join in the conversation here with us. But we'd like to hear your voice too. We're down to our last half hour. We're going to take a break in a moment. So if you're on the line now and you haven't spoken, please chime in.
I'd like to say.
Yep. All right, we got two people. Let's start with Otis. Otis, I believe I heard you.
Let's start with the lady.
I was gonna say ladies first, man.
All right. Well, I heard you first. That was why I said let's start with Otis. But sure. Let's start ladies first.
Hey, it's Andrea from Omaha.
Hey, Andrea. Welcome to New Abolitionist Radio. Thank you for calling in. And what is your comment or feelings on the matter?
Well, I hosted the demonstration here, and as you were talking about white supremacy marches, there was about 3 others at the same time as ours, and I made mine pretty public with all the activist groups around here. We have quite a few, and all that stuff, and so instead of just working with me and coming to mine, everybody decided to host their own for different reasons. Like there was a healthcare march, there was the No Place for Hate march, there was another one, and so I was frustrated, I guess, because it was like all these people originally said they were coming, they were going to support us, and then the other ones kind of took some people from us. And it's fine, I do think those things are important too, but I kind of feel like, why not all of us just work together in one group and let's have this one today, I'll come to yours tomorrow, the other one I'll go to next week, whatever, I'll be at all of them if I could, because I'll support everybody. But one thing I do want to say is that I have to thank the LGBT people that came to support us, the people from the Women's March that came to support us, Black Men United came, and they've been supporting me from the get-go. And then there was another group. I'm forgetting your group. But anyway, but no one from the prison community came except for me. And that kind of broke my heart a little bit because I'm like, what is it going to take for you guys to stand up for yourself? Well, now, I'm kind of excited about it, but I'm kind of overwhelmed too because now I'm the spokesperson for all the prisoners. So now in the past few days, since then, I've gotten contacted so many times, and I'm like, wow, I don't really have anyone helping me, and now I have 15 people I need to get back to. Like, what can I do for you? What do you need from me? And I think that's great, but I'm like, I'm already helping 40 prisoners, and so now I'm like adding even more, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm by myself pretty much because, I'm just the one that does it, I guess. I'm the activist here for that reason, and I'm the advocate for them, So yeah, I'm a little overwhelmed, but at the same time, I'm glad they know somebody's out here. But I would have just liked for there to have been more of us,
Yes.
But we were out there. People were seeing our message, so I'm excited about that too.
Thank you for organizing. You said in Omaha?
Yeah, Nebraska.
Wow, Omaha, Nebraska, all over the country. Thank you for putting that together. If you need help, there are 2 forums that you can reach out to other abolitionists to get some help. That would be the Millions for Prisoners Human Rights March main website on Facebook, and also the Move to Abolish Slavery and Human Trafficking forum on Facebook that we have through New Abolitionist Radio. those are groups of people who are willing to assist in efforts towards abolitionism. So if you need some help, just reach out there. Hopefully we can get a few people to give you a hand.
Speaking of Omaha, we lost political prisoner, former Black Panther Party member or affiliate organization, Mondo Wilanga. He passed away. His government name was David Rice. But Ed Poindexter is still a political prisoner. The two of them were known as the Omaha Two. So shout out to Ed Poindexter.
I actually put Edward Poindexter in my speech. He had open heart surgery not too long ago. I think that everybody here knows him, and everybody knows that all this time, for years and years, he's maintained his innocence. They never really had any evidence against him, but I guess that's kind of the, normal thing for that. Anyone with that association during that time that got picked up. But, so he's a really well-known name here in Nebraska, and so I put him in my speech as well.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. And I'm glad that you're inspired. And this is one thing I want to point out, and then Otis, we bring you in, is that if you take a look at the diversity that we're dealing with here, it's not an all black issue, it's not all white issue, it's not all red issue, yellow, blue, green. It's all people coming together for one single cause to end slavery, because we know that most of these issues we're dealing with right now, including the racism, stem from that. And not from slavery in 1865, from slavery in 2017 with free labor, and you're selling human bodies on the open market through jail bonds and prison stocks, and the abuse and the torture that we've talked about, including and up to sexual abuse and torture.
Yeah, traumatic slave syndrome. And with all due respect to the good doctor, there's nothing post-traumatic about slavery when it's still present, So that's like trauma that's being committed every day on these persons. Otis, go ahead, bro.
Well, I just want to augment something you said. It was talking about Mr. Woodfolk and solitary confinement.
Woodfox.
Woodfox. There's a Harvard Medical School psychiatrist. I pull up these things all the time after talking with y'all. He said in one study he found roughly a third of solitary confinement inmates are actively psychotic and acutely suicidal. That's from lack of human contact, inability to communicate, leaves you with psychiatric syndromes characterized by hallucinations, panic attacks, overt paranoia, diminished impulse control, hypersensitivity to external stimuli, difficulties with thinking, concentration, and memory. Some inmates even lose the ability to maintain a state of alertness, while others are developing crippling obsessions. So when you look at a man who's been through that over 40 years, it takes a strong mind to do it. Some of those minds can't take it, just like that brother that jumped in. Right. I went over that video several times after I saw it during the march. And I also went over the guy who taped him, who has a history of doing this. So that was nothing new for him. He just jumped in on a weak mind and tried to use it for his agenda. But the brother that was talking, if you stop and listen to the transcripts of what he was saying, he's suffering from some kind of mental condition. There's no question about it. And the other thing I wanted to say is we need to use Facebook a little bit more concentrated. I've looked at some of the things with NGOs and talk about how these people are pushing hashtags and making millions of dollars a year. Are you still there?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. What I'm saying is we should target, maybe on a Monday, maybe on a Wednesday, whatever you want to do, simple memes with simple meanings to it, like the 13th had never been abolished, and put those out at the same time on every platform. I don't care if it's 7 o'clock in the morning, put it on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. That's what it takes to make these things go viral. After studying Twitter and Instagram, we got 16 to 20 different places all over the country. If only 3 of us in each location put them out at the same time, we can get the message out and don't make them long and complicated. The other thing is, when it comes to exception clause, diagramming a sentence is one of the best things you can do for people, because I did it in the 5th grade and got in trouble, and I'm only a mile away from the school I did this in, named James Weldon Johnson. When you diagram a sentence for the 47 words in that 13th, you can get to the part when it says exception. I've had lawyers tell me, yeah, but. No, there is no but. The way that phrase is structured, once you get to accept, you're not getting rid of slavery. What you're doing is changing slavery from a privately run institution to government sanctioned. Because the government is the only one that has the power to duly sentence you in court. And people need to understand that.
Part 2 of the 13th Amendment clearly states that Congress has power to enforce this.
Exactly. And I'm through with that now. I've loved the job y'all did.
Thank you, Otis. Everybody did a great, wonderful thing. We got 20 minutes left in our broadcast here. Scotty, I've already put up our rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad, so we can skip through that one.
Max, excuse me. I'm checking my email. I'm not sure. I don't think Mind, Body, and Spirit Radio was on tonight. I'm checking my email just to be sure. But I'm sure if I requested it, I can go, overtime. So we don't have to get off air right at the top of the hour. I see we do still have plenty of mics open. So if people want to share, this was a historic event, and just so many special moments for me. This was my first actual trip or participating in any kind of way, any kind of role in pulling off what we did in Washington, D.C., and just how, within a week, everything just came together and how some things fell in place to our favor. And it just seemed like, for those spiritual people out there, because I'm a spiritual person, it just felt like the Creator wasn't going to let anything go, stop us from what happened. And like we've heard the people from the different areas of the country say, that people had other rallies, didn't come out in support, but you still had one. You still had a gathering and you made an impact. So that's a win. Again, you were part of a whole collective. Max said up to 20 cities. I read 16. But I read in the paper, combined, we were in the thousands. So yes. Don't think that your small crowd was part of the collective. And what's that old African proverb about the ants conquering the elephant? So, you played your role. Be proud.
Yes, and it was so important, so historic that a freaking full solar eclipse occurred just after the event. I mean, on the anniversary of Nat Turner's rebellion. I mean, how more significant can you get in history than what we just witnessed? This is never going to happen again like that. All the stars was aligned. So yeah, the impact is certainly there.
If we have some new callers and you did not speak yet, please take this opportunity to go ahead and speak.
No, I need to do both.
But please watch your background noise also. So anybody that hasn't spoken that wants to share their thoughts with us tonight, please go ahead.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Trevor Griffiths. I took the trip down to D.C.
Greetings.
From New York City. It was quite an adventurous drive. I was blessed to be a part of this march, and hear the different speakers. As someone who who just served 23 years straight. You know, I've been on 5 years now, and it was really amazing to see, you know, all these people come out and actually care about what's going on with the brothers behind the wall. You know, it was like an out-of-body experience for me, because I never seen that many people in one place that actually gave a damn, you know, that was really in tune to what's happening. So, you know, I was really grateful to be a part of it, and I'm definitely looking forward to, you know, to doing my part to assist to end, you know, slavery in prison and out here, because actually that's what it is. You know, it's a slavery and it's a plantation. You know, I worked in the different programs in New York State prisons, you know, for a lot of years when I wasn't locked down to solitary confinement, and they starting out with, you know, 14, 15 cents an hour, you know, and you work. It ain't like, you know, just sweeping and mopping. You work. And, you know, when I came home, I was like, yo, there's got to be a way to put a dent in the number of people that just get shut away and nobody seems to give a damn. You know, and then when I came across this on Facebook, I said, hold on, you know, because I'm a part of this group, Prison Reform Movement. And they gave me the link to the march, and I said, hold on a second, man, this is something that I definitely need to be a part of. You know, I called my boss the next day and said, look, man, you know, I'm taking some vacation time, you know, around this time, because I'm definitely going. You know, and unfortunately, I couldn't get a few of my other friends to, like, you know, come with me, because, you know, their wives told them they couldn't go, whatever, but, you know, I could dig it, you know, I understood. I said,
yes, sir.
You know, I said it's about peace and, you know, trying to, you know, progress and trying to help the brothers that we left behind. It ain't about going down there, you know, tearing the building down, you know, tearing up DC. You know, it's not about that. It's about education. So that's the only way we can move forward. But I was really blessed to be a part of this. You know, I met some interesting people. It was a blessing for me. That's basically it. It was just a real blessing for me.
Gave you hope, didn't it, brother?
Absolutely.
Yes, and that was the main thing, to give us hope, because we all felt like we were fighting this losing battle where we had to go on fighting forever. But here we got hope, something that could bring us all together, something that cares about all of us, including the lives behind bars.
Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't a bunch of nonsense. I mean, it wasn't no shooting. Nobody was burning nothing. You know, it was just people expressing their viewpoints, people educating. It was, you know, educating the masses. You know, letting them know about, some of these people that's been locked away 25, 30 years, they're still people. You know? Even if they did what they've been accused of, even if they did, they are still human beings, and they should have the respect and the rights of human beings. And if you understand, you know, no matter what color your skin is, if you understand any of the concept of slavery and what it is, then you should give a damn about the people who are still enslaved.
What you're talking about and what Scotty was talking about with the programming and the education, I'll share my experience. When you go into the system, then the words in the 13th take on their true meaning, because for the first time that I went to jail, my husband and I were down in, and you know, when you're going to go on the wagon to take you to the jail, you're in the bottom of the courthouse. So everybody's coming in and out of there while you're sitting in handcuffs. And the first time that you really understand what the system is when you see men shackled around the waist, shackled by their ankles, and shackled with their hands, being paraded endlessly in front of you, all chained together. And then you're like, and I don't mean to curse, but you have that epiphany, and you're like, holy shit, that's really what this is. And a lot of people, I think they need a visual, and maybe somebody that's more creative than I am will come up with a visual representation. But for me, that was when I knew. And, you know, you read those words, and a lot of things that people read, you read it, and you're like, yeah, okay, whatever, and you don't really get it until you do. So that's just my 2 cents on with the programming. A lot of people just really don't get it until they're there and they see firsthand what's going on.
If you ever get a chance to listeners, watch a special that they did about Cooks County in Chicago, where they have this underground tunnel. And all during the day, exactly what you just described is occurring. A long train of men shackled hand and foot, going from the jail to the courthouse in the one big human flesh assembly line, from slave to criminal with one amendment.
Yep.
Scotty, I just like to interject right here. What so many people don't understand is with 95% of plea bargains, it is almost statistically assured that half of the people that are there shouldn't be there in the first place. So when people keep seeing this Freedom Project and the Innocence Projects where people are still making, it's a good project, don't get me wrong, because it takes a lot of legal rigmarole to get some of these people out. But the truth is, when you find out that police officers are willing to lie, willing to plant evidence, and it's becoming more and more apparent, the hardest block that I find is when you talk to people about somebody in jail, the first thing they say is, yeah, but what did they do? It doesn't matter what they did. Once they are stopped by a police officer for anything, whether it's driving, walking, stop and frisk, once that police officer goes to that courtroom and tells the people his story, he's assumed to be telling the truth. And we know now that's not the case.
Right, and that's due to the programming, the television programming of, you know, the different cop shows and stuff where they're always portrayed as being people who are honest and have integrity. But see, again, we live in a different time, and I know that some people that I call friends and I work with them, but they sometimes seem to be anti-technology. But I'm like, but this technology can be used against them. And so while, you know, let's not dismiss technology as a tool, and we just have to get better at our propaganda efforts so that we can combat, you know, the system programming. So that all boils down to the simple word of education, like the brother from New York was saying. And that's what the rally was really about. It was about straight up education. It wasn't there to make a scene or to destroy property or anything, but just educate people, because once you become aware that slavery was never abolished, there's two things that come to your mind. First, how, and I'm speaking of myself, how am I in my 40s and I didn't know, and I consider myself educated and I didn't know, you know, that slavery was ever abolished. And then two, you know, it just really changes your life. Now, if you're one of those people that can walk away and be apathetic after that and say, yeah, whatever, when you do get it, like she said, when you get that, you know, for you to be, I mean, you just as bad as a slaver to me. And, you know, like a George Zoley, the head of CEO. Because how can you be apathetically, you know, on the issue of slavery? So I think it's just a matter of us keep putting the 13th Amendment, because it speaks for itself. And we can explain the different tentacles, but let's make clear that those tentacles all lead to one place, and that's legalized slavery. Yeah.
I want to interject something that Otis said earlier, and this is a story we apparently won't be able to go over tonight, but I think that everybody should pay close attention to this. As you know, we have been keeping track of what happened all the way back in New York when they had the police slow down and they were forced to go back and start using these arrest tactics that they have been using before and summons and so on because the city was losing money. And then we also followed up with the story about the police officers from New York who came out publicly and told about these quotas that were going on and how their jobs were on the line. And they were risking their lives behind this huge conspiracy that was fleecing the citizens of New York and beyond. Well, now, Sean King, the man who wrote the article in the New York Times about the 13th Amendment never abolishing slavery, has come out with a new series called Soul Snatchers. And I'm just going to read what he said, just a paragraph of what he said in regards to this 5-part series. He said, "This is the most important professional moment of my life." I didn't misrepresent. That's exactly what he said. "I'm starting a new 5-part series called Soul Snatchers, how the NYPD's 42nd Precinct, the Bronx DA's office, and the city of New York conspired to destroy Black and brown lives. What I'm about to tell you is the most painful, traumatic, outrageous, outlandish, over-the-top story of government-sanctioned police brutality, wrongful imprisonment, wrongful convictions, forced testimony, widespread corruption, money, lots of money, and deep, deep, deep soul-snatching psychological abuse in modern American history. I would not have believed it had I not seen it all for myself. The rabbit hole I am about to take you down is deep and twisted. It should lead to the termination of a whole host of officials. Many should be arrested, and a comprehensive, independent investigation should begin immediately." You should pay attention to the story because it's a direct relation showing the 13th and how it's being exploited on Black and brown and all bodies right now. So pay close attention to that story. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, and I wanted to also speak to something else. Otis mentioned that 97%, however, high 90s plea bargain rate. See, that also is education. We got to look at the jury nullification as well. And running a public campaign and telling people to stop convicting people of crime. We're getting some background noise off somebody's line, and I can't identify it.
You know what's funny is you guys are hitting on a lot of stuff that I was going to cover tonight. But
you'll still be able to cover it. We're not shutting down at 10.
Yeah, we're going to be repeating a lot of stuff because it's important that this message gets out there because like the brother said, the education is very important. A lot of people are just running around and just don't know.
Right.
And
right. So think of a public campaign to like Max. Me and Max was having a conversation earlier today. And so in general terms, I told him there's nothing being done that the masses have not allowed. We've been allowing slavery. We've been allowing this. We've been allowing that. Remember, Frederick Douglass said the limit of tyrants is prescribed by the endurance of those that they oppress. And we've been enduring a whole lot. So, I mean, in terms of like the plea bargain rate, there needs to be a public campaign to tell people to stop pleading. Then when you clog up the system to where they can't even prosecute cases. You just back it up. It might be 20 years before you had your first trial, your trial or whatever, if people would just plead innocent. And it's easy for me to say that sitting here not facing any charges. So that just comes down to personal conviction that if I'm innocent, that I'm not going to allow them to frighten me into taking a plea deal for something I know I didn't do. But also, go ahead, people who wants to speak on that.
But they could keep you in jail until, until your trial, like when you think about what happened with Khalif Browder. he had the same sentiment, and that's what my husband and we fought it out.
But it wasn't enough people.
To a jury trial.
It wasn't enough people, though.
I was lucky enough that they were not torturing me every day because I was able to afford bail to get out, but they would have tortured me in jail every day until I took a plea deal, because that's what they do to you. That's how they use the bail system and all the other mechanisms that are in there to torture you into, I need to get out of here because where are my kids, or I'm going to lose my job, and they have this racket stitched up tight. So people have to take a plea deal. And one of the speakers at the meet and greet, there was a mother and daughter there, and she did, the mother who was the speaker, I'm sorry, I've forgotten her name, she did less time with her plea bargain than her cohort did, who went through a jury trial, who was still in prison at the time that she was speaking. So there are a lot of mechanisms
I understand that. But like you said in Khalif Browder's case, now if everybody would stop taking plea deals, and again, I'm speaking hypothetically here, not facing any charges, but if you clog up the system like that, you wouldn't have any more space for the prisoners to keep everybody in jail. Then you have all this overflow, and then everybody's like, hey, what's going on? So again, me personally not facing it, if I was to face some charges, I'm going to plead innocent because I'm going to be innocent. You know what I'm saying? So I do understand that people have families and the system basically coerces them to take these plea deals. I'm not ignoring that. I'm just speaking on the fact that we are, through circumstance or through decision or through fear, and the fear is real, actually, just willingly going along on this pipeline.
And Marie, just to accent what you said too, I've just posted 2 stories on New Abolitionist Radio. One man in Alabama spent 10 years. He's still in prison right now, never received a trial. Another one spent 35 years with no trial.
See, how does that happen?
This is the things that are happening to people.
Man, how does that
the man
happen?
In Texas.
I have a question if you guys don't mind.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, somebody from 813.
Yeah.
What's your name, sir? If you want to share your name first, and thank you for joining us.
I apologize, James. Thank you for having me. So I'm wondering if we could address, the economic component, in like a lot of these types of things, because I feel like the economics are at the heart of a lot of why these issues proliferate, right? Because because if you're an underclass, right, then you can be funneled and, you can get funneled into prisons, and everybody else can essentially exploit you in the form of bail bondsmen, lengthy prison sentences. And, you have, and one thing they talked about in 13 too, because I watched the documentary, is all these industries that are tied to the prison industry. So I feel like there's no way from inside the prison to really change that, because once you're in there, then you're automatically a factor in how they can not make money off of you, right? So externally, you create an economic system where your people can't be easily targeted that way, because you got to figure, how many police officers are yanking, black people out of the suburbs in, their homes and throwing them in jail without bail and without trials and everything. They usually concentrate that kind of stuff on inner cities because they know, like Khalif Browder couldn't afford, $500, I think, for his bail.
Simple
so
yeah. But it's actually going on.
When I was in there, bail was $75. They couldn't get out.
Yeah, but it's not just happening in urban areas. Let me just say that it's happening in rural areas. It was one where they're offering. Where was that, Max? You reported that last week, where they offer you to get sterilized. If you want to get out of jail, you could. I'm sorry. Sound like somebody.
Yeah, that was in White County. I forgot what state it was, though.
Yeah, so So let me just say this. One of the things that stood out to me, and watching the footage and seeing all the photos, is the diversity. that is represented in this and in this movement, and all the people that work together. That was really cool, man. That was really just. I'm just really excited for the growth of this movement, because we're gonna need those young people that were out there.
If you don't mind, Scotty, I wouldn't mind hearing the final comments from the caller, James, too, as well.
Okay, I was going to give him opportunity to finish speaking, but
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead,
Scotty.
James.
I didn't know.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
You see, you wanted a final comment?
Yeah, what you were saying, Scotty just advanced on it. You know what I mean? Some examples and stuff like that, and so did Anne Marie. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah. I mean, I really feel, based on like if you listen to what Dr. Clark Anderson says, the only way to change any of that, really, because the system exists already, and it's way too profitable for them to really change it. The only way you can change that is to make yourself not be a permanent underclass.
Well, James,
you know what I mean?
James, let me.
That comes from economic opportunities.
Yeah, let me stop you right there, James, because I kind of knew that's where you were headed. But all due respect, I think that Dr. Claude Anderson is wrong, because how can a people, and we're not just concerned about black people. The new abolitionist movement is concerned about human rights of human beings, and all human beings are being enslaved in the United States of America, which has global tentacles. So I know Claude Anderson, Dr. Anderson, focuses on just the black community only. But let me point out, I will point you to Yvette Carnell's Breaking Brown channel, where black folks don't have the kind of money to buy their way out of white. You can't buy your way out of slavery, okay? You just really can't. They have all these systems in place to prevent you from doing that. That $1 trillion in spending power that we keep hearing about, that's the difference. And we talk about this on Tando Radio Show. We're talking about money that people are spending on bills and spending on rent and spending on just basic needs to survive. There's a difference between spending power and assets. And for the most part, all statistics, I hear what you're saying. You're saying that we need to create enough black businesses so that we can employ enough black people, so then the slave catcher won't prey on them because they employed, but that's a fallacy, because Black Wall Street was burnt down. Okay, go ahead.
Let me say something to you.
All right, go ahead, bro.
In the area that I just purchased a home in, do you want to know who's building all the houses in my area?
It doesn't matter to me who's building homes. What matters to me is whether slavery exists or not in this land.
But check what I'm saying, though. Check what I'm saying. You have tons of Hispanic men that are out here building all the homes in the neighborhood I live in and in the surrounding areas, right?
Okay.
How likely do you feel that those men who have gainful employment, who's going to work every day, punching the clock, going home to a family, have 2 cars in their garage, have insurance for their jobs in case they get hurt, they have benefits for their family and their children, how do you think he's more likely to get preyed on and thrown in jail, or do you think the young man who has zero economic opportunity and who's facing having to go out here and sell drugs, engage in illegal activity to try and make money, to try and feed his kids, versus a guy who has a dedicated job? So
what?
I'm in that industry.
Otis, give me just a second. So again, I'm not hearing in slavery and any of that what you just said.
No. What I'm saying is that it begins there.
No, it does not. It does not begin there. It does not. I should not have to avoid being enslaved. There should not be no slave catchers out there prosecuting. No, give me a second, James. No, I know the argument, and I'm going to stop it right now. There's no buying your way out of slavery. All economic classes go to slavery. Are the billionaires children? Yes. If you become a millionaire, it's less likely that you're going to become a slave. So that's true. I will agree with you there. Okay? But what about all the masses of the people that will never become millionaires? Okay, so let's just be real. This capitalistic society has winners and losers, and black people ain't gonna be winners. We're in this, the way this racist system, capitalistic system is set up, and when they can throw us into slavery and make profit. I've heard people in that camp that you speaking of say, well, since black people represent the biggest population in prison, then black businesses ought to have those prison contracts servicing the prisons. So what they're talking about is participating in slavery. I ain't down with this. That's an abolitionist show.
That's not what I'm saying.
Hey, can I interject something?
Yeah,
can I interject something? Look, I've been in that business for almost 40 years. From Arizona, right on across this country, and I told people 20 years ago, I'm here in Virginia right now, I told people 20 years ago that Spaniards would be building the homes on the East Coast. Now, I'm not a genius, but I'm a pretty good observer. And here's what Scotty's trying to explain to you. You just put a lot of things on those Spanish workers. That's definitely not true. They don't all have insurance and homes or any of that. What they have is an employer who has paid their way to get here 9 times out of 10, if they're undocumented, a stable workforce that will not, for anything, will accept exactly what they're paid. And the other thing is, let me finish. Okay, and here's what they have that poor black people don't. If they get stopped on the way to the job, they call that employer, and because he needs them on the job, he pays what the system is set up to do. He pays their bail, their bond, and they work it off. Most black people don't have that. And what Scott is trying to tell you, the system is set up to either incarcerate you or to demand money for your freedom.
But wait a minute, Otis. Our Hispanic brothers and sisters is part of this abolitionist movement as they are filling up the private prisons, entire families, the GO group. They even have children in there, so-called teaching them English and brainwashing them to be good Americans.
And I'm agreeing with you because
I know you are, Otis. I know you are. Yeah. But I want to also say,
was the young man just talking about the economics of being able to, or what people mythically think will enable them to not be trapped in the slavery system? Because if that's what you were saying, let me tell you how much a jury trial costs. This goes back to the whole reason that people have to take a plea bargain. And Yusuf was a lawyer. He can tell you, for my husband's trial for 1 week, it cost, and we don't have that money, and that's just, there was 2 of us going through the system. His trial alone would have been $30,000 for 1 week for a low-level felony. That's not including bail. That's not including the going to, in North Carolina, you go to lower court first until you get to superior court. So we already paid a few thousand each in lower court. And I had been lucky enough to be found indigent, which almost no one ever is. If you have a job, you will not be found indigent. If that's what you were talking about, you will have to pay for a lawyer, and you will not be able to afford it. Nobody can afford it. The only reason my husband was able to afford his half after I was found indigent, and let me tell you something else right here, I would have gotten a divorce from him if I had to be found indigent so I could get a jury trial, because I thought that would help me. My husband's lawyer stopped charging him at a certain point because he gave my husband a break, but everybody has to pay $30,000 each week in superior court for a felony. I just wanted to let everybody know that, because the whole thing about jury trials in this country I don't think is completely understood, because so few people get them. And my husband and I both got one. So I think that's what the young man may have been talking about also. And what Scotty is saying, that nobody can buy their way out of slavery unless you're rich, because you have more privileges but you don't have rights.
That's not something that I'm disputing. Like, I'm not disagreeing with anything you guys are saying, right? So I understand everything what you're saying. All I'm saying is, well, first of all, there's several things. I don't particularly, I'm an immigrant, by the way, and even I don't believe that like Black Americans should be caping for like other Hispanics and everything and stuff, strictly because they don't really cape for you guys. Which is why when you see they come to the United States of America, they come in specifically for work and literally to step over you for work and jobs and everything. Which is why when their men come here, they do one thing: they find a job, they send for their family, and then they bring their family here and they bring other people here to take jobs. The same jobs they tell you that aren't available for your people to work, that's the jobs that they're working. So that's why I'm trying to tell you, like, when I look in the area that I live in, I look around and I see them being successful. They're not over here on the street corner in front of Home Depot anymore. They're driving trucks. They're insured. They have actual industries now.
Listen,
in the town that I live in, here we have several different trade schools that do their entire instruction all in Spanish. So you can learn real careers: electrician, HVAC, plumbing, automotive, photography, and also medical assisting and nursing. And the instructions are all in Spanish. That's the industry that they've created, so that they can come in and they can get the same trade programs they took out of your school. And this is my history with you guys.
But see, again, let me say this, James. Let me say this, because, see, I just can't get down with the divisive language.
No, it's not divisive.
Yeah, yes, you are. Yes, it is. This is how what you're saying. When you say they, you are labeling an entire group, and you don't speak for that entire group.
I'm a black man.
Listen. Let me say this. This is Black Talk Radio Network. And we do target a black audience, and we talk about black issues. But New Abolitionist Radio and this abolitionist movement that I've been a part of for the past 5 years is international. I mean, we don't pay attention to your nationality. We don't pay attention to your religion. We don't pay attention to your skin color. And the solution to slavery is abolishing slavery. The solution to ending slavery isn't more jobs, because they can't create enough jobs for all of us. They'll create jobs by enslaving. That'll be your job, enslaving another person. Okay? So we have abolitionist comrades who are in the Hispanic community. So I'm not buying into no they, okay? I mean, people say, well, the Asians doing this or doing that. I interviewed Angela Chen, a prominent immigrant rights lawyer and leader of a prominent Asian American legal organization, and she's an abolitionist. We're all united to tackle this problem as slavery. Okay, the answer to ending slavery is abolitionism. You can't reform slavery, you have to abolish it. You can't create your jobs out of slavery. You can't. No. When the slavery is what's generating jobs in so many related industries. So I understand, because I've been running a black radio network for 9 years, I've heard it all. And what you're talking about, James, does not fit into this abolitionist discussion that we're having. It ain't they that we talk about on this program is they, the slavers, or they, the abolitionists. So you can become a part of this. I'm glad that you tuned in. I'm glad that you chimed in. But it is much bigger than a black and white issue. It's slavery, man. And it shouldn't matter the color of the slaver, and it shouldn't matter the color of the victim of slavery. And these Hispanics in the GEO group have filed a lawsuit calling it slavery, a class action lawsuit, and I stand in solidarity with them. And I will shut up for the rest of the night and let Max take over.
Can I interject something? What that gentleman is doing is confusing another question that we need to take up later as a cause for black people and minorities. He just told you about a program set up for Spanish people, but that's a different pipeline altogether. it has really nothing to do with abolition. That it should be the question on why are building trades and people with money creating a system to pipeline Spanish people in instead of getting an open system where anybody can apply. There's no accident that is Spanish, and 9 times out of 10, if he takes the time to check the public records, he'll find out that some organization took some grant money and some building trades people, probably the Chamber of Commerce, is doing that. But they do it because they have a captured audience. Someone who's coming here from a third world country is not going to be as demanding as a citizen. So you're confusing two subjects. This subject on this platform is abolition of slavery. The bail system, refusing to fund the public defenders, so you force people to have to plead, just like the lady was saying, because they have families and a life to get back to. And then you have overzealous prosecution, because rather than charge somebody for the, quote, crime that you think they committed, the prosecutor totals them up with 4 or 5 additional charges and then threatens you. If you go to trial, I'm going to ask for the maximum. So why don't you take 5 years instead of a possible 18? So there's coercion built in the system along with the bail system. As a matter of fact, the Human Rights Commission has already said the bail system in the United States is the worst in the world other than Nigeria.
Okay.
Imagine that.
Well, here's what we want to do, guys. I don't know how much time we have left. We're already in overtime. So let me ask Scotty, how much time do we have left on the program tonight?
As much time as we need. You are talking to the manager of the network, so.
all right. Just figuring out. Okay, great.
Thanks for asking, though, Max.
Yeah, I just want to know when to put.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go into some of the segments, though, Max.
Well, I want to give anybody that did not get a chance to speak tonight and wanted to speak the opportunity before we did anything else. Is that all right? So I know we have a lot of callers on the line right now listening in. Just unmute yourself with the star if you have any comments that you'd like to offer about tonight's conversation regarding the Millions for Prisoners Human Rights March on Washington, D.C. and the 16 to 20 sister rallies all across America. If you were a participant or you'd like to share your experience, we'd love to hear it.
Hey, Max, can I say one thing? The caller that was talking before.
Go ahead, Otis.
All right, I just want to say the caller that was calling before, if he can follow me on Facebook or Twitter and give me his information, I'll send him some information referring to the subject he was on.
Perfect. That was a perfect.
I'm on the board as Otis L. Griffin. I'd be more than happy to bring him up to speed because we don't want to run anybody away that's interested.
Right, exactly, yeah. Fantastic. That's a good idea, Otis. This is a learning process for a lot of people. We're hitting a lot of cognitive dissonance in many instances, and it's understood. There's some confusion going on, and this transfer of understanding, as I said earlier, from thinking you can reform this because it's a mistake to you have to abolish it because it's a crime is not an easy thing to accomplish overnight. But we have made major strides in that, as Greg Jacoy explained when he said, I didn't even have to explain it to my daughter. And we all know that nowadays this is the talk of town. Everybody's speaking about it. Where Black Lives Matter has proclaimed itself to be the platform for the unheard voices, abolition is the message that needs to be on such a platform because it's a solution to a problem, a solution to many problems. So, again, if you have experiences or you just want to chime in, Scotty said, go ahead, we can do whatever we got to do. So I'd like to hear the various voices from across the country.
Max, Doug in South Carolina.
Yes, sir. Welcome to New Abolitionists Radio.
Yeah, I just, if
it's great.
You're saying that.
Sorry.
Yes, me. Oh, no, please go ahead. That's fine. I just wanted to reiterate what actually I was going to say the same thing that Otis was going to say, but maybe in just this, or what Otis said, but maybe in a slightly different way. I don't want anybody to think that because there is such a single-minded focusedness to New Abolitionist Radio that means that that any of us is saying another issue is not important. You can't have another issue that you're focused on. What we're saying is, when we're on this issue, we're on this issue. There's not enough time allotted to this issue for us to allow anything that anyone thinks is a related issue to put foot inside this territory. This territory needs to be set aside specifically to talk about abolition. And that doesn't mean that other issues are not critical. It means, I'm saying, if you were doing a telethon for cancer, you wouldn't call in and talk about diabetes. Okay, that's kind of the thing that I'm saying. So, not a matter of anybody's issue being less critical, whatever. It's, to me, it's like this is the critical space, and this is the space that we ourselves, you yourselves in particular, Scotty and Max and the other people behind New Abolitionist Radio, this is that space for which that is the issue. And I can't tell you how proud I am to have known y'all for as long as I've known y'all, so that I've been able to do the learning
and to see the progress along the way. Indeed,
absolutely. Yes, it's amazing.
It's all connected. We find, slavery is connected to everything. One of the last things I talked about during my speech there in D.C. was about the Declaration of Human Rights from the United Nations, which is globally recognized. And on that declaration, you have slavery listed as number 4. Like, how the hell do you have slavery listed as number 4? Like, whose priorities are you going by? And it's because of things like that that we have this format where we're putting it all together under this umbrella, because that's where it belongs, the umbrella of abolishing slavery. It's been a hell of a long battle, you know what I mean? And now we're seeing the fruits of it. And this march isn't over. The post effects of the march is going to continue on for months. You'll be seeing videos of and the speeches and the transcripts and all of these things coming out over and over again from all angles, you know what I mean, afterwards, which is going to push this thing further into the consciousness and get us to the point where we may have those congressional hearings that we have demanded on this subject. You'd be surprised how everything is so tied into this. Nowadays, you can't wear a damn pair of jeans. You can't buy food. You can't eat at a fast food restaurant. You can't pick up your telephone and call for assistance. You can't do just about anything without it being directly connected to prison slavery through the companies that exploit prison labor, or economic development programs using prisons as the only reason that certain communities or cities or towns or counties exist.
That's real talk.
Yeah, it's real talk. We're in a war right now, like literally a war for the hearts and minds and souls. And the only thing that can win this war is the truth.
Absolutely.
All right, I rambled a little bit. Go ahead.
Marissa Garcia is on the line. I think she's been trying to get through.
All right, Scotty, can we mute her if she's what would be her first 3 digits?
She's probably going to be like a 323 or 818, something like that. Something Southern California.
All right.
Hi, it's Marissa.
Hey, there you are. Welcome to New Abolitionist Radio, Marissa.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be on. I would like to just take a few minutes to just share feedback from the sister rally that we had in Riverside, California, if that's okay.
Please, we've been looking forward.
Awesome. Okay, so basically, I feel overall, I think everybody that attended that day, the organizers, to everyone that just came, that heard about it, walked away feeling very empowered and very changed. A lot of the comments and feedback that we've heard from people is that there was an extremely amount of high energy that day. And I feel like it speaks volumes to all of the hard work that's gone on with everybody for the past year, and just the dedication here in California. So for us, we had a rally and we had a march beforehand. And it was very small. There was probably, 15 people, but we said, whatever, we're going to do it anyways. And we marched 5 blocks all the way to the rally location. And we had a really diverse group of speakers that came on Saturday, as well as attendees. And I feel like, from what I heard earlier on the radio, that while our focus is always going to be on the 13th and slavery, that it also, it ties into so many issues, that it's really important that we share those spaces with everybody. And so for us, the rally was a huge success in the sense that we had some very powerful speakers, but also some really powerful people that are putting in a lot of work. We had a mother who, her son was a victim of police brutality, and she came to speak on that and how it connected to the bigger picture. We had, family members come. We had Amber Rose from CURB in California, and they do amazing work in terms of, trying to stop jails and things like that. And so for us, in terms of like our takeaways, we definitely felt disappointed in our turnout, as well as, just the fact that we had, networked with media 2 months out, and we had sent out several press releases. We had called the media like a month out, 2 weeks out, and then even the morning of, and they're like, yes, you're on schedule, we'll be there. And so not having any media present was disappointing for us, as well as the turnout. We did experience, some no-shows. We had a couple organizations that had committed to speaking, attending the event, helping, with the organizing. And one of them in particular, our organizer had called a week prior just to confirm, that everything was, good. They were coming. They said yes, and, they just didn't show up. There was a third organization that said that they would help and do all these amazing things, and then they pitched in this idea that they wanted to make shirts for everybody and that they would pay for it, but that they wanted their name of their organization on the shirt. And when I said no, I figured that might have been one of the reasons why none of the reps from that group also came. So that was definitely kind of weird for us. Another takeaway that we did have in terms of just California in general, we've been in contact with the Sister March in San Jose, and they felt the same way. They felt like the turnout was lower than expected. They also had, people that didn't come through. However, they felt that they had really laid the foundation down. And so for us in California, I feel like I can speak on behalf of everybody that participated. We feel really, really motivated and inspired to move forward as a coalition for California. So that's probably the biggest takeaway for us in terms of like how beautiful it was, because as soon as the rallies were over, the marches were over, all of a sudden it was just transitioned into, all right, what's next? What's the next steps? And in Riverside, we had a focus group after the rally, and everybody that came, it was just automatic. We were turning to each other. We were talking about ideas, how we can support, what we could do next. We had people that just showed up to say, hey, we couldn't make it, but we want to do this and this and that. And so when we talked to San Jose, it was just kind of like we were on the same page. We both wanted to do the same thing. So I definitely feel that overall for both of us, it was a huge win, and the energy's still going. And we've already had a conference call with Southern California and Northern California on how we can connect together. So even though we didn't get all the media coverage we wanted and we didn't get 500 people, we feel that we were successful in building that solid foundation in becoming a coalition to abolish slavery. So it was a life-changing experience, and we are ready to move forward.
Well, I'd like to add something to what you were just discussing, and thank you God bless you for pulling these things together in California. I'm so proud of everyone. But I would like to point out some things that you can do now. And I had a conversation with some people recently about this who asked me, what's next? What's next? Well, right now in the state of California, you have an exception to slavery. And California wasn't a slave state. But it says directly in your Constitution, California Constitution, Article 1, Declaration of Rights, Section 6, slavery is prohibited, involuntary servitude is prohibited, except to punish crime. Right there in the Constitution. So it would be a good idea to show the federal government how it's done and to get some of these states organized and to getting those exception clauses taken out of your state constitution. So Rhode Island isn't the only state that doesn't have one. And then we can start legal processes like Scotty explained earlier, where many people are being exploited through prison slave labor. Now we can start real legal processes to
and shout
abolish
out
that as well.
And Max, shout out to Colorado, who almost through a ballot initiative got that slavery exception clause out of their state constitution. And you didn't win this time. You almost did, but hey, just keep fighting.
Yeah, all it takes is a ballot initiative, and they did Initiative T in Colorado. And because of propaganda coming from the prison industry itself, saying that the goal was to release all of these prisoners from these high maximum security prisons, people were very worried, and they voted against it. And that was because of counter propaganda. So we can push forward now that we have more of a solid foundation to stand on and more of a network to work with to doing that and lead the way for the federal government. So that's one step forward that you can do with just a few people.
Okay. May I ask if it would be possible in the near future to perhaps have a call or some kind of video Skype or meeting where we could get some advice from the organizers in Colorado on how they got that process going and just what they've learned? Because that would be really helpful.
Yes, I think that you have a brilliant idea going there, and I will commit to trying to make that happen, because it's not only Colorado, but also Maryland tried the same thing, and so did Indiana try the same thing. And we have these people who have this experience in making this attempt that did not occur. But now we can bring them together and find out what we can do differently to make it happen now. With, as
Max,
I said, more of a more solid foundation.
The conversation that we had on our Carolina contingent on the trip back from D.C., and Greg's on the line, and we discussed super PACs. Now, again, I hate the system. I hate that money in there, but we have to look at who has experience and integrity to run a super PAC, an abolitionist super PAC, so that what happened in Colorado, then we would have had a fund to where we could counter their propaganda with some ads. Now, we would have to go a long way to build a treasure chest like the private prison industry has, but I think that, that's something worth considering.
Yes, it is certainly worth considering. But I think that these initiatives could use that type of monetary push, but it's not absolutely necessary for it to occur. We can start moving forward with this. And I'll do what I can to bring such a conference call of people together so we can talk about this. Because it's not limited to those who actually tried. There are others who have professed that they want to do it, like Senator Lena Taylor out of Wisconsin, who has complained publicly about the exception clause in the state of Wisconsin's constitution. The states can lead the way on this. This all can be local grassroots efforts. And if we could just win one of these, then the chain reaction will follow suit.
Max, can you hear me?
Yes. Who's speaking?
This is Layla. All I want to say is every time I'm on the phone with you and Scotty or just listening to you guys, I have to take notes. I had read our Constitution in California, and I thought it only legalized indentured servitude, because you see how the words are tricky and how
Yes.
they worded it. So that's something. And I want to just say, Marissa, you guys did a phenomenal job. I didn't know any of that stuff, but I need to know names of the people who did that in the organization, because we need to call them on the carpet. We need to really call them out for that. And
Thank
you did
you.
a great job.
Yes. Thank you. We all did. So it's nothing but good feelings.
Yes, I avoided saying anything like that personally because I started off pissed off about certain things, but I just wanted to keep on the positive up until now. I will mention one of the things that pissed me off, and that was during the march, we were talking, it was these signs, these orange signs that said abolish mass incarceration. And people were chanting, abolish mass incarceration and end mass incarceration. And I'm like, didn't you read the bill? We're here to abolish slavery, not abolish mass incarceration. And if you just think about that sentence, abolish mass incarceration, you will realize it don't make no damn sense, because mass incarceration is not a source, it's not a cause, it's not a thing, it's the results of something. And you can't abolish the results of something. You have to abolish the actual crime itself. So it was really confusing, and it pissed me off, and I ended up out chanting. I got some of my abolitionist comrades who are on the phone now, and we literally out-screamed the brother who had the bullhorn. End slavery. Every time he said end mass incarceration, we said end slavery. Every time they said abolish mass incarceration, or we'd say abolish slavery. We just kept doing it. I think Anne-Marie made a comment on that, as a matter of fact.
I heard you.
But that was the thing that bothered me. So I just did what I could to shout out loud. Yeah. And there was a couple of brothers that came on, and sisters who came on and said about, talked about mass incarceration. This one brother, I think it was Doug Banks out of Texas, came in and he said how we need to reform this system. And I'm like thinking to myself, brother, you haven't really read the script of what we're talking about here. You come in talking about reform. And in my speech, I even said, if you're talking about reform, you're confused right now. I mean, because you can't reform a crime against humanity. Either it is or it is not slavery. Make up your mind and let's work this out.
Right, and I'm here to attest to the fact that all what Max said earlier about preparing a speech and all that went out the window, because we were looking at each other, because I know Max, I've been working with him for 5 years, and I know certain trigger words that'll get him saying, huh? Reform what? You mean abolish? And he said to me before he went on stage, man, I'm just thinking about just going off the top of the dome, cause a lot of got to clean up a lot of this, misinformation. And not saying that it was intentional, but again, we're going to come across activists that are working on a system, on a symptom, and treating symptoms is important. But at the same time, we got to bring them along to tell them about that disease. So, but Max, that was still a great speech. I hope other people caught it.
Layla Aziz says she's going to do the transcript. I look forward to seeing it because I'm not completely sure everything I said myself. All I know is I prayed beforehand and I let the Spirit speak through me. And I believe I even claimed it, that the ancestors are speaking, blessing my words right now. And I felt like it.
We just had someone unmute themselves, I think, from 401. Did you want to jump in? And Max, anytime that you and yourself want to go into those planned segments, or if you want to continue to freestyle it, it's just, again, the energy that I felt in DC, I feel on this line as well, so I can identify with the people who were talking about the energy they felt at the rallies. And like Hannah was saying earlier, look, there used to be a program on this network by these two former Panthers, and one was a former political prisoner, Kamboa Irvin, and his wife, Sister Jonina Irvin, Lorenzo Kamboa Irvin. And they had their little organization based in Tennessee, but just, they were with us for a couple of years, but I just listened to them because I engineered a program. And one of the things I picked up from them, going to what Hannah was saying, is most successful revolutions, only 5% of the population participated. The vast majority of the people were apathetic. They were just trying to survive in the system. So I just wanted to mention that she is right based on what I've heard from not just those elders, but studying revolutionary movements. And when I say revolutionary, I'm talking about revolutionary change. And of course, I'm an acolyte of Malcolm X, and by any means necessary is my mantra, but I'll work with anyone, to end slavery. So that person that called in, please go. Thank you for joining us. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Oh, no, it was just me again, Scotty. I actually just joined in to kind of say something off of what Max was talking about, the chant. I've been to several different rallies and marches. It's so important that when we're at something, that the person with the megaphone knows the...
Jess, can you speak up a little bit? Because you're coming in low to our radio audience, so if you could speak more directly into the phone or speak louder. Go ahead, please. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry, let me fix this. All right, is that better?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
I don't know if that's better. Okay. No, I was just saying kind of when Max was talking about how, the chant was going this way, and then we didn't agree with that, so then the chant started going this way, and we started saying, end slavery. It's so important when we have somebody with that microphone as a poet and as an artist. That microphone is an amplification of energy. And so when we have people who are not being clear in the message, and I think someone said it earlier about being very clear and direct with the message, I think that's something that going forward we need to really be mindful of. Who has the microphone? Who has the megaphone? What is the message they're going to send? Because chanting end slavery down those streets amplified by 1,500 people instead of, a few rabble-rousers in the middle being loud is really important. So that's all I wanted to say, and it's just really important when we do marches and we do things like that, that the people with the megaphones and the microphone same message and just call it what it is and not be afraid to offend anyone. And can we be all right with cursing? I don't know. Slavery kind of sucks, so I'm sure that a few cuss words isn't going to bother anyone. And that's all I wanted to say. And I really appreciate everybody that I met and everything about that weekend. So I'm going to go back to being mute.
All right. Thank you, Jess. I appreciate the comments. Final call for any last comments, and then we're going to go into our new segment.
Peace.
All right. Yes. I heard someone say something.
Peace.
Peace. Is that Tag?
Yes. Yeah. Peace, brother Max.
Peace, man. I finally got to meet you, man. Awesome. What's happening, Tag? Welcome back to New Abolitionists Radio.
No doubt. Appreciate it. A resistant Black August to the BTR network and to the abolitionists. I just wanted to connect off of something that I heard said as far as targeted social media propaganda attacks that I heard from Brother Otis. I just wanted to connect that with the ongoing monthly Twitter storms being called on by Brother Jaleel Muntakim and his supporters, which has been occurring on Wednesdays on a monthly basis for a minute now. Jaleel Muntakim being one of the earliest, to my knowledge, political prisoners and just people in general out here to really call for a targeted focus on the 13th Amendment exception clause. And on that, also just to point toward the writing that he did recently as regards a proposal around the UN International Jurist, which is available on his website, freejaleel.com.
Hey, I would like to say, Tag, that it was certainly a pleasure to meet you in the flesh and blood. I met Tag online when he reached out to me as a college student through the Black Talk Media Project's internship program, and he actually kind of like flattered me when I found out that he had did a paper. I think it was on propaganda in the use of propaganda in Black Talk Radio Network. And that's been about 2 years, I think. And then just networking with him to interview activists on local, political prisoners or anything going on in New York, and just coordinating interviews and just, feed me information that's going on in New York. And, so Tag, it was great meeting you, young man, in person. And, I didn't even know that you were going to make the trip, but it was one of the best surprises since I've known you this long, but never, and worked with you, but finally to get to meet you, it was a pleasure.
Absolutely, likewise, and likewise the same, Brother Max, and got a chance to connect with Sister Tribal Rain, and just so many, active and just consistent abolitionists out here. There's something just very encouraging about seeing those kinds of numbers as regards, the focused question of, are people being enslaved out here or aren't they, and the fact is that they are. And, any time that we demonstrate that heads are not tolerating that fact, we're making ground. So much appreciated to all the work y'all have put in across the board.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, indeed. One of the things we did was some research on the constitutions of all the states. We checked every single state's constitution and language for slavery. And our new Abolitionist Radio Facebook page, I just put up about a dozen different states where we can start initiatives to get those exceptions out. They only use 3 words in all of the states, and about 24 states have exceptions. The 3 words they use is either except, unless, or otherwise. And when you see those, that's the okie doke right there. And this is even in states that did not have slavery, which leads you to question why in the hell would they need to put in their state constitutions about how slavery except for prisoners duly convicted. I mean, where did that come from? And that also leads you to see how this whole conspiracy has been going on to allow this continue, this modern day slavery and human trafficking.
Max,
they've been exploiting this prison labor since day one.
Before you go into the regular segments, as we get ready to wrap it up, I do also want to say on air, thank you to Tommy Jordan down in Georgia, who is one of the hosts and producers of Melanated Roots radio program. Comes on every Monday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Black Talk Radio Network. And he just recently learned how to engineer a digital radio broadcast so that he could join the Black Talk Radio Network. And he volunteered to sit there for 6 hours and broadcast and work with me to get that out over the Black Talk Radio Network. And, it could have been a much better broadcast, but I heard positive things from people. They weren't able to catch fully all of the speakers, but what they did hear, they were encouraged by. And again, it was hundreds of people. I would estimate about 600 people in about 38 different countries tuned in to portions of the DC rally. So thank you, Tommy Jordan. It could not have, we couldn't have done that without you stepping up. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, Scotty. Well, what I'm going to do for the remaining time is we've already shared the stories for our Rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad, and also for our Abolitionists in Profile and our segment for Freedom's Sake of History Rebellion. I'll just read you who they are. You can find the articles on our Facebook page on New Abolitionist Radio, and also in our planning stage page on the Black Talk Radio Network community. Our rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad this week will be 61-year-old Ladora Watkins. Watkins was released on June 15, 2017, after serving 42 years for robbery and a murder that he did not commit. He's the longest serving inmate to be exonerated in Michigan, and we want to say welcome to freedom, Brother Ladora Watkins.
Welcome to freedom.
Welcome to freedom. Our Abolitionists in Profile, and also our segment. Yes, yes, indeed. Anybody else want to say it? Feel free. This is beautiful. The spirit goes to him when you do. Our Our Abolitionists in Profile and the segment for Freedom's Sake, A History of Rebellion, will be combined into one segment. We'll be remembering Nat Turner's rebellion, which was divinely inspired by the solar eclipse occurring on August 21st, 1831. So we're just 2 days past that anniversary, which happened on the eclipse. And as we said earlier, it just seems like a magical thing. Salute to Nat Turner and his rebellion. If you want to know more about that, go ahead and read it on New Abolitionist Radio. Now, we're in the middle of a constitutional crisis in this time, and I had a conversation with the police at the march, 2 senior officers, and I approached them with the 4th Amendment, the 6th Amendment, the 8th Amendment. I wanted to know if they knew what they were. I started with the 13th Amendment and said, have you ever read that? And since we were there about the 13th Amendment, it seemed obvious that they now knew what that was about. But they didn't know what the 4th, 6th, and 8th Amendment were. Now, I think that is outrageous to have a senior officer or any officer who has sworn an oath to defend the Constitution not know what the people's rights are. The 4th Amendment is violated all day, every day. The 6th Amendment is violated all day, every day. The 8th Amendment is violated all day, every day in a criminal action that is whole scale. So we feel it's important that you understand the rights guaranteed you in the Constitution thereof, and how they tie into slavery, how they're being manipulated by slavery, how some of them were incorporated by slavery. For instance, to the best of my knowledge, I know that I've heard that the Second Amendment was put into place to be able to have militias against slave uprisings. Many people may not be aware of that. In any case, Yusuf Hassan has volunteered his time to be able to educate us on these amendments for the coming weeks. And I myself will be taking some time off in the coming weeks because I have to do quite a bit of traveling and face-to-face action with what's going on with this abolitionist movement. We'll be going to Ghana in September. We have the Chronic South Carolina Human Rights Conference.
Duration and will end in 1 minute.
Coming up. We have the Human Rights Conference coming up in North Carolina, which Scotty Reid and I both will participate in, as well as a couple other things. We'll be moving into a house which was previously owned by John Brown's brother and occupied by Black
Max, just hold up right there, Max. It's going to end, so I'm just going to call back in, okay?
Okay, Scotty. We're going to take a pause for the calls while Scotty calls back in to restart the conference call. That way we'll have the recording record of everything.
You are the first participant on the call. Please hold while we wait for the others to join.
Yep. We got cut off.
We got a lot of feedback from somewhere.
That's some of the spookiest stuff ever.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
A lot of reverb on that.
Yeah, it's kind of funky though. It was kind of funky.
Well, I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Whenever you're ready, just let me know.
Oh, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, the board got dumped. That's the first time that ever happened, but we're still on air. And I don't see anybody on the board, but obviously people are still on the call, so go right ahead. Let's go.
All right, so
let's go.
As I was saying, that it's important that you understand your constitutional rights, and we also want to know how they're connected to both past slavery and modern-day slavery. So Yusuf Hassan has offered to volunteer his time in order to go over these amendments with us once a week. And I myself will be taking several weeks off in the coming days because, as I said, we have a lot of things going on, including going to Ghana and helping start an abolitionist movement there, several human rights conferences, where Scotty and I will be attending Chronic, the South Carolina Human Rights Conference of 2017, and a couple of other events. And as you know, my daughter just gave birth today. My son is about to move to Philadelphia to take care of his mother, the one that just got out of prison. And we're moving into a house in Ohio, it would seem, in the coming days, which was owned by John Brown's brother and used as an abolitionist headquarters for Black abolitionists. So it's being renovated as we speak right now, and Maxim Tribal will probably be moving into that house and operating from there, which is amazing, just mind-blowing. Anyway, let's get on to our final segment. It will be with Yusuf Hassan, and it's about the Constitution. So, Brother Yusuf.
Oh, you know what? I had already packed up for the night, man.
Did you really?
I didn't know we were going to actually do it tonight because we touched on, a lot of stuff with it. So, I mean,
we can put it off till next week.
Yeah, we'll begin it with next week because I was just so glad so many people called in tonight. And once I saw that, we had even hit the 10 o'clock mark, I said, you know what, I'll deal with all of this stuff next week.
Okay, great. Well, I'd like to also let you guys know that next week, Eddie Conway will be coming in as a guest. So you'll have a guest next week. Eddie Conway, former political prisoner, spent decades in prison as well, and now he's a host on the Real News Network and was a big supporter of the Millions for Prisoners Human Rights March on Washington, D.C. I guess with that, then, Scotty Reid, we're at the 10 o'clock mark. Any final comments?
Yes, I just want to thank everyone who participated in the events that took place across the nation, and just the spirit and the energy that I felt on this call, and that it's a real thing. 5 years I started out when I reached the max, I was like, just newly becoming aware of the 13th Amendment. So I'm late. I'm really, really late. Some people go, like Lee Wood, go back to 1971, recognizing that slavery was never abolished. But they have been very good at hiding that bit of information from us in plain sight, right there in that Constitution. But when I became aware, I didn't know any other abolitionists. I came across Mr. Wood. I knew about him, and then his groups called CAPS. Then I found Max, and I said, Max, I want to produce this program called New Abolitionists Radio to spread the news that slavery was never abolished and that the 13th Amendment legalized it. And what we're calling mass incarceration is just a symptom of slavery. And Max was fully on board. We've had several hosts over the years. And I mean, remember, we started off, nobody listening, and then built up an audience over the years. And Max has talked about the trip to Ghana, people in Ghana hearing New Abolitionist Radio and wanted us to come out because this is an international movement. Okay. It's not just confined to the United States. And that's why I don't play the nationality game, because it's a global system of slavery. And so, just it all culminating in a physical, historic event after 5 years for me, I mean, it's like, hey, this is no longer just a piece of information in my mind. I have now united with other people with that same information, but that information is no good unless you act on it. And we all took our various actions towards informing and educating people about slavery, and now to the point that we have people who are formulating plans and strategies and actually attacking slavery. So again, thank you all for the wonderful abolitionist experience this weekend. And until the war is won, let's just keep fighting. Thank you.
Yes, Scotty, I echo your sentiments. Anybody else want to make any final comments for the evening? If you could keep it brief, we'll allow it just for this time.
I'd like to tell you, gentlemen, I'm so proud as if I were in your family. The last 4 years that I've been listening to you two gentlemen, the tenacity and the dedication. And I told you, I think before, I was in the 5th grade the first time I ever wrote about this. And then later on in some chats, I'll tell you some more. But this is one of the most confirming and validating things I've ever done. And I wasn't a fan of social media. I was a single father and had to learn it because I had a child that was messing with it. But I'm so happy I found you guys. I don't know what to do. Peace and power to the people.
Thank you,
And
Otis.
this
Thank
is
you.
Layla.
Layla?
And I just want to say I forgot to thank Otis That's where I wanted to really get on, because his information always on Facebook is extremely helpful. And so, Mr. Otis, Mr. Max, and Mr. Scotty, as we take this to the next level, you guys being in the forefront and guiding us is not just required or asked for, it's demanded. That's all I have to say.
I understand you, sister. I love you too. Thank you.
Much love, lady. Much love.
Anyone else? All right.
Yeah. Well,
yes,
yeah. I'll just be real brief. You know, Max. You know, I thank you all the time. You know, when I think about the trip you and Travel made from South Carolina coming up to Patterson, when I was in Patterson, New Jersey at that time, in the middle of a snowstorm. You know, for you guys to perform and then for you to open my eyes to the 13th Amendment. And, you know, it's just been a wild ride ever since. And I think I, and Tribal have been to maybe 9 different cities together now, you know, and, you know, it's definitely heartwarming to see, you know, what we all were able to accomplish this weekend, whether we were in Washington, D.C. or any of the other cities, you know. And, you know, I've been getting feedback from people that are incarcerated and other people have, and, you know, they're just ecstatic about this. You know, that people are actually standing up for them because, you know, they're the lost part of society. And so, you know, I'm just glad to be part of this. You know, I learned so much from everybody, either through their posts or what's, you know, spread across the airways, and I'm just glad to be part of it, you know. And as our brother Yohanan would say, peace to the abolitionists and death to the oppressors.
Amen. All right. Unless we have any more, I'll go ahead and say what I got to say for the evening.
He's very,
yes,
very briefly, I just wanted to, I'm not sure, I think that his name was Brother Travis, but this brother who called in from New York, who discussed, you know, his experiences behind the wall.
Yes.
I didn't quite hear the name of the organization or group. It sounded like Prison Record Movement or Prison, an R-word movement, but I would definitely like to hear more about that particular organization. And if you found that there was time for it and we're looking to build around these same issues in the New York City area, definitely feel free to contact IWOC NYC. Heads are building around this abolitionist necessity, and the email address is iwoc.nyc@riseup.net to contact the local chapter out here.
Yes, sir. Shout out to IWOC, because from the very beginning they have been supporters of this abolitionist movement. They were the first organization out in Missouri, as a matter of fact, to declare themselves an abolitionist movement organization, abolitionist focused organization. So I'm very proud of you guys. Thank you for everything that you have done, indeed. Final call? Yes, sir.
Is that IWOC, WALK?
Tag.
IWOC for Incarcerated Workers Organizing Committee.
Thank you.
No question.
All right. Well, I guess I'll close it like this. It has been an epic experience. This was the real life equivalent of the last episode of Game of Thrones. It was that damn epic. And it has not ended yet. It was incredibly important, and the ripple effects have only just begun to manifest. Look towards the future. I have a poem, short poem. I'll read it real quick. And I decided to read it because of some of the things that I was hearing that the other organizers had to deal with. And you'll see it in the future again. I'm not surprised. Nothing we can do about it now. That's just the way things are. I'm a realist. I can't get involved. No negatives allowed in my life. They don't need my help. I wouldn't know where to start. It's not my fight. I don't want to go down that road. No one is going to change that. I'll make a donation when I can. Let somebody else handle it. I got too much going on already. You can't beat the system. I'll do what I can from here. I'll pray for them. You're too intense. What do you expect me to do? It's more than I can handle right now. Nobody wants to hear about that every day. It's not that bad. The sounds of silence. Thank you to everyone who made the 19th, something epic. And I look forward to the changes that will come and the freedom we will see in the future because of our efforts. And I will never forget that abolition is a reason for a revolution, so we can finally know some peace. Peace.
Rise up, 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 rise up. Showtime. Just lift your eyes up. Let your wise rise up. See the signs of the times. If it's time, rise up, rise up. When death and hell dwell among all God's people. When those we chose and trusted have become completely corrupted and inherently evil. When the feast that feeds you starves our father's children. When snuff, porn, and pedo forms begin to get top billing, rise up. When famine claims millions. When justice gives blind eyes to billions. When the Lord's anger is no longer feared. If his protection is gone and your enemies are near. If you've seen the seas spill over and the mountains shake, break, and fall. If the moon ever turns blood red and you can't see the sun at all, rise up. No matter if the prize is high in the skies.